Class is in session, hitting the books. College football betting show back with you Monday, November the 4th, week 11 of the college football season. Ian Cameron and Connor Mack with you. And we, as always, will break down all the weeknight games, the vast majority of the power conference games on Saturday as well, as we continue to get closer to the end of the college football regular season. Less than a month left. Pretty crazy. And then we'll be into the championship games, conference championship games, and then the bowl games. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that it is also the start of the college basketball season today. Holy mackerel, almost 200 lined games between the regular board and the added board. Absolutely crazy. I was up until 6 a.m. my time handicapping this card. Absolutely, it was a beast, that's for sure. I've got the first Division I game, I guess you could say, of the season in front of me on the television set, College of Charleston and Southern Illinois. So it's a pretty good game, actually. It was really well played half, especially offensively. But good to see college basketball back, Connor Mack. And I'll just throw it out there first. I'll just give you a couple plays, and then we'll get right into college football. But college basketball, a couple of plays that I like. I'm on Chattanooga late night against USC plus the points. This is a spot that appeals to me because we know Eric Musselman, former Arkansas and Nevada head coach, is taking over at USC, but he has not done well in these non-conference games. I mean, as far as covering the numbers as bigger favorites, Chattanooga, the Mocs, I think, are of potential to be one of the better teams in their particular conference. I know it's a long trip out to the Southern Cal, but I think plus the points with them is worth a look. I was going to mention McNeese State, but it's moved too much. McNeese State is certainly the more experienced, better roster. I think there's a little bit of a weaker South Dakota State team this year, but everyone's onto it. It's like 10.5 now. So unfortunately, it looks like the best of the number has kind of gotten away with that. I'll throw out Canisius in Arizona as an over that I like quite a bit. I actually like that Chattanooga USC over as well in that game as well. And then I'll throw one out for the late night hours. Baylor and Gonzaga. It's definitely the game a lot of people will be watching because it'll be on ESPN2 right after Monday Night Football tonight. I like the over in that game in particular. Baylor is going to be pretty good on offense. They brought in some nice transfers as well. And I think when you look at Gonzaga, they've got a lot of their core back from last year. Khalif Battle, of course, as well. That's going to be a very, very good offensive team. You're going to get pace both ways. And I still think Baylor defensively is a little shaky coming into the year, so I think that's a good over in the late. If you like points, you're going to enjoy that game with Baylor and Gonzaga in the late night hours. And I'll throw out one more side as well that I was interested in with the college hoops board for tonight. I think too many points for Villanova. Lafayette is out of the Patriot League, but they are a pretty solid defensive team. They are also a Pennsylvania team, so it's kind of like that little brother, big brother type of deal. Villanova, I'm just not convinced is going in the right direction under Kyle Neptune. They're not a team I trust covering, 20 points as favorites. I think Lafayette can hang as a big dog in that game. So I could go on, but we'll be here forever. Those are just a few plays I wanted to throw out. CMAC, any college basketball late post-Halloween treats, I guess you could say, for the viewers?
Yeah. Now if this gets to 7, I really like. I'll take Baylor. I thought I'd wait on it if I got 6.5, 7. It's kind of getting there.
Too, if you look back, yeah.
Gonzaga's here, and they're very, very talented. I actually agree. In these Gonzaga, but it's the opponent that I think could get that over Bovano, because sometimes in a Gonzaga game, it'll kind of usually go right around in this area from 155 to 160. But I think there's still enough wiggle room at 156 to get over. This one I want to look at a little bit more. There's been some, I follow this UNLV team pretty closely. Some of these early games that they have, they can be a little bit flat, but I don't see how they don't beat Alabama State by 13. I haven't bet it.
We've said this for years when we've talked college basketball, you and I, CMAC. I don't trust these SWAC and MEAC teams when they're playing athletic, better competition. They usually get absolutely steamrolled. So that's something to point out.
Yeah, and I think it's low enough. And this UNLV team's pretty good, I think, this year. Pretty athletic, as they showed in flashes. Last year, there's tons of so many games. I think Vermont against UAB is get plus 6.5. That's a good small little matchup that throughout the year with these mid-majors is pretty good. But I think the points there with Vermont can hang around. That was about it. I mean, I think there's big teams. Like I think Duke rolls. I think there's some of these big numbers you could lay it and don't look twice. Like I think you could lay the 31 with Duke. A few of these. There's always going to be.
I think Temple.
A team or two
Temple
out there.
pounds Sacred Heart. I like Temple. I like Temple the way they played. I think Nick mentioned that in the Ice Guys chat when I did the hockey show just now, that they're worth a look. Temple. I think Temple laying the points. I like the way they finished the season last year.
Yeah, definitely. So a shit ton of games. You mentioned McNeese. Everyone's onto them. I think this might go. This is too far though. Now.
Yeah, it's a big.
They're super talented, but I don't know if I have enough. South Dakota State's just lost so much, and I don't know if they have the scoring. Like I'm kind of interested now at 10. Like I wasn't. It's everyone, and everyone's on. They know how good this McNeese State team was last year, and how they can score. And we'll see. Maybe they pressure South Dakota, or it won't be easy. In kind of these gyms and some of these neutral places, this is close to home. These games go under, but kind of this number I think you could get over, of course, with McNeese. But
yeah,
that's one that I looked at a ton last night in that game, and it's moved a bunch already. This morning.
Yeah, look. I'm high volume, but again, high volume, and I'm involved. I have some kind of bet. I would say I'm probably 75 to 80% of the card today. But again, some of these are very small bets. Some of these are very small bets. C-Mac. Yeah, I know, but some of these are very small bets, and then there's a select few that are bigger, and in some cases significantly bigger. So it's all about your money management. You can be high volume and bet like 3/4 of the board if you're managing your money properly. You just can't put big units on every game, and that's what I do. It's all about managing it. Like I've got a little small action here to begin the day and the begin of the season on Southern Illinois right now, plus the points against Charleston in this first game in the Pentagon here. I like Scott Nagy. He's one of my favorite coaches. I thought, why are we giving this guy 4 points as an underdog? That was a really good hire by the Salukis.
Yeah, I love playing them. Their always problem has been scoring. But hey, Charleston, they're scoring. So like that, as long as the shots go down, I love how they play defensively consistently. So I've been on them though when they've had some dreadful nights from the floor.
So Mick Cronin, Nick, and we'll get on to college football after this. This is the last thing I'll say, but he's a good viewer. I want to answer the question about Ryder and UCLA. I don't love laying points with Mick Cronin in non-conference. He's a bit sketchy sometimes.
Yes.
Laying bigger points in these Now, I don't disagree that they should probably be able to run over Ryder Bronx out of the Metro Atlantic, which is a weak conference to begin with, one of the weaker ones of the mid-majors. But you look back in their track record the last few years, laying big points in non-conference, it's spotty at best.
Yes.
And so I actually lean Ryder a little bit there, but I don't love it.
And it seems total like right near the number a lot the last few years when they beat like a team like Ryder. I mean, if they're red hot, maybe look to the first half because that's what I mean. They kind of ended up right near there, and if they're on, they'll easily cover. But if they're not, and hang around, this could be the weird 20-point win. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. And of course, there's some nice matchups tonight, and there's some TV matchups too. There's Ohio State and Texas. That's a pretty interesting one.
Yeah, that's here in Vegas.
I'm not a big Rodney Terry guy. I actually kind of think Buckeyes might be live in that game as a slight dog against Texas. I'm kind of leaning Ohio State there. Build off the momentum that the football team got with a big win against Penn State over the weekend. So, but anyway, that's just a little sample of some college basketball. We'll give you the official post on Twitter X when it's official, but we're going to aim to try to have a college basketball hitting the books show every Friday for the rest of this calendar year. So for November and December, we're going to come at you with Friday shows for college basketball. Plus, we can preview the Friday card, maybe the weekend card as well. And then obviously we'll have more than one show a week once football winds down when it comes to college basketball. So this Friday, time to be determined. We'll come on the air with a college basketball edition of Hitting the Books. And Friday is a huge slate in college basketball. So it is a good day to have our first college basketball show later this week. All right, let's turn our attention to football because while basketball's just getting underway, college football, it is getting serious now. serious as far as conference races, serious as far as the playoff picture is concerned, who's going to make it. So obviously it is the crunch time of this college football season. And we begin, of course, with the Tuesday night games. And finally, Maction has graced our lives on weeknights. Maction for the first time this year, weeknight Maction, nothing better than that. Bowling Green taking on Central Michigan. We've got Bowling Green, 12.5-point road favorites, 48 being the total here in this game. The Bowling Green Falcons very much alive to win the MAC. It's a wide open race right now. If you look at the current landscape of the MAC, you've got Bowling Green 3-1 in conference play, tied with Ohio and Miami O, trailing the only undefeated team in conference play, that being Western Michigan right now. But Bowling Green still very much in the mix for conference championship supremacy. But can they win covering a number like this is the question. Haven't always seen Bowling Green here in MAC play be at their best as double-digit favorites. In fact, you go back since playing Fordham in the first game of the year, way back in August, we've seen Bowling Green double-digit chalk 3 times, 0-3 against the spread. They lost outright against Old Dominion. They barely beat Akron, 27-20. They needed a goal line stand, and they were 16-point road favorites. They needed a goal line stand to hang on. And then 24-point favorites against Kent State, 27-6. And that was a game where Kent State was really ravaged at the quarterback position as well. So they've not been a great double-digit favorite. So I'm not excited to lay 12. The question is, can you trust what we're seeing out of Central Michigan right now? Because they got absolutely crushed by Miami O, 46-7 in their last game. They were competitive, though. 2 games before that, they were losses to Eastern Michigan and Ohio, but by 4 points or less. You know, what's the situation at the quarterback spot? Tyler Jefferson, to say he's been kind of raw at the quarterback spot would be an understatement. So far, just completing 51% of his passes, 1 interception. Hasn't been great. He got the start, obviously, against Miami O and really struggled throwing the football. I don't think I'm betting this game, I'll be honest. I like the track record for Bowling Green isn't good enough, in my opinion, as double-digit favorites, especially to trust them on the road here. But they are the better team, quite a bit the better team. And I don't know if Central Michigan's got enough offense to keep up with Bowling Green and Connor Bazelak and company for 4 quarters. So I'm probably passing, maybe a slight lean to the under, but nothing really that strong. What do you think here, Connor Mack? Bowling Green, Central Michigan.
Yeah, to answer Dom's question, yeah, the no daily was good. One thing that was only good about that for me, Babano, was the news. Because normally we've gotten no news in college football that the quarterback is in or out. So that was a good thing. So I just had to take it off the board.
Yep.
Yeah, I got a little bit before that. Yeah, so it was just a void, kind of like a pitcher. You know, it's just like, that's a no bet for me. But it's not always been like that, where you get the news and not everyone sees that, of course,
right?
Being up. But I was just glad that, yeah, I was able to, there was some news before that. And it looked like he'll be back this week. But yeah, let's get to this one. Wow, this Central Michigan team is tough to like. They, you know, when I get down to it, some of these teams, sometimes they don't do much well. But man, like they're not a very good team all the way around. One thing, back-to-back road games at EMU, where they lost by 4, and then they get blown out. Look out, Miami, Ohio, playing a lot better football. Been getting turnovers, and that's why they've been winning and winning big after a tough start. But Bowling Green is consistently laying this number. You hit it. Horrible. You know, they're dogs at Toledo. It went outright where we love them. And that's where I'd be on them. There's just no way I can back them. Because I'm looking to this was, to me, if I was having 2 touchdowns, I'd be all over them. I still like Central Michigan here. That's my lean early on. They don't throw it well. Both these teams, you know, can give it up on the ground, and Central Michigan's going to need to run it. They've been better at home, and I just think after getting their ass kicked, and now they have a bye week, you know, here with Central, you're gonna get their best effort and keep this game close. And Bowling Green kind of plays down to their competition, plays up when they've been big dogs, then plays down. So I'm definitely interested here, the dog.
It's a bit of an ugly dog because look, Bowling Green's a lot better, but Bowling Green's 0-3. Like I said, 0-3 against the spread. That matters to me as double-digit favorites. That means you're not putting away these, you know, mediocre teams. And, that, and off a big win at Toledo too. Let's see if they have the focus to, drill at this team as they are capable of. That remains to be seen. All right, next up, we've got Miami O and Ball State. Miami O, 12-point road favorites, 48 the total. This game also taking place here on Tuesday night, weeknight action begins in earnest. Miami O, man, they have turned into they've turned not turned their season around, but they kind of were disappointing in the early part of the year. But they played Northwestern, Cincinnati, and Notre Dame. That's a pretty tough schedule. They had the 10-point loss at Toledo as well. And then against UMass, we saw them get a 23-20 win there. Meanwhile, they get 3 straight wins and covers, double-digit wins against Eastern Michigan, Ohio, and Central Michigan. And I think the biggest component of these wins is Brett Gabbert is finally playing like Brett Gabbert again. He's finally been throwing the ball, slinging the rock, making plays. They've been running the football extremely well as well. Keon Mosey has really done a nice job for Miami O in the run game. And that offense is starting to play with, we thought the offense with Gabbert back would be pretty solid this year, and starting to finally look that way for Miami O. Meanwhile, you've got Ball State, who, sneaky underdog here these last couple of weeks. They were 27.5-point dogs at Vandy. They won by 10. Now, admittedly, it was a flat spot for Vanderbilt. Probably didn't take Ball State all that seriously. But then at Northern Illinois, a very good Northern Illinois team, one of the, I would say upper half teams in the conference. And there's Ball State, giving them a really good game. Caden Samanza, a solid day through the air. They had balance in the offense too, 169 rushing yards against a solid Northern Illinois defense. Down to the wire, a 25-23 loss, 25-23, I should say, win for Ball State. 51-yard field goal at the end to win that game for Ball State against Northern Illinois. Huge victory for them. So, not easy for me to lay points against Ball State. Double-digit dog. They've now covered 3 straight as a double-digit dog. All in MAC, or 2 of them in MAC play. 2-0 ATS as a dog in MAC play. Western Michigan, the undefeated team in conference play, CMAC, the only undefeated team in conference play at 4-0. Ball State took them down to the wire and lost 45-42 against Western Michigan. So, again, this is not easy because Miami's rolling right now. 3-0 straight up and against the spread, all double-digit wins. I don't love stepping in front of teams when they're on that kind of a run, but at the same point in time, Ball State has been an undervalued commodity in recent weeks. They've been able to trade punches with some of the better teams in the conference, beating Northern Illinois, losing to the only undefeated team in conference play, Western Michigan, by 3. I'm kind of leaning home underdog here, Ball State, just because of what I've seen and their ability to step up in class here against, again, the better teams in the conference. They beat one, and they lost to 3 to the other. What do you think here, Connor? Miami O, Ball State.
Yeah, I wanted to check this too. For Gabbert, the passing yards are decent. They only average 127 because that's, this Ball State defense has been awful. But it's been in a couple, 3 of their games. The blowout Miami, blowout to James Madison. So it's kind of skewed. The defense isn't very good, and it ranks 130 if you look at the numbers. They give up 300 passing yards and 176 on the ground. But I like how they played the last few weeks. Like you mentioned, sleepy spot for Vandy, big favorite, cover there, beat Kent State. And then last week, because I think they can have some success here running the football. And these last few years, these have been tight football games. Ball State, because how bad that defense, I think the total's a little high, but they've been an over machine. Pavano, these kids, they've just been going over consistently. And they're going to need to score here. Miami, Ohio has been better offensively. The defense has been good. They've gotten takeaways. The special teams has been a lot better. That's why they've looked really good the last few weeks. And they even got me when I was on Eastern Michigan 3 weeks ago. But I had to eat it. Went right back to Eastern Michigan this Saturday, which was 10-point dogs and 1-point game, clockwork. So, yeah.
It's hard to lay double digits in this conference to me. It's very, very difficult.
Especially on the road. Yeah. So this is a dog I like even better here out of the 2 here in Ball State. I think they keep this game tight.
I don't want to make it sound like you blindly bet dogs, you'll do well. But I think if you take dogs and more often than not, you're going to do well, especially at this time of year. Like, look at these teams.
Yeah.
We know Miami O is better than Ball State overall, especially on defense. There's a big difference. Miami O is a lot better on defense. That could be the concern here. But nevertheless, you've seen Ball State, and in the last game, the game we talked about, Central Michigan, at times step up, especially though Ball State. This is the dog I like more. I don't love Central Michigan that much. I think I could get there with Ball State here in this one. I actually lean to the over because suddenly they're piling up some points now, Miami O. So I do lean a little bit over here with this total at 48 with Miami O and Ball State. Last year, it was all defense, and the offense wasn't great. This year, I don't think the defense is quite as good, and now the offense with Gabbard is starting to hum. And Ball State certainly got a better offense than they do a defense. So I think the over could get there.
Machine. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to Wednesday. We've got Ohio and Kent State. Another double-digit favorite here. The Bobcats, Ohio, 18-point road favorites, 52 being the total here in this game. Obviously, this is a horrible Well, it's horrible as far as they are the worst team in the conference. 0-8. They haven't won a game this year. 0-4 in conference play. There's a reason Ohio's laying a number like this. Can we trust this Ohio team is going to be the question. Now they're off a dominant blowout win against Buffalo in their last game, 47-16. Absolutely steamrolling the Buffalo Bulls at home. Parker Navarro, pretty solid this year at the quarterback spot for Ohio. But unfortunately, the one thing he's had an issue with is turnovers, 7 of them in 7 games, as many as he interceptions as he has touchdown passes. So that's not exactly what you want to see here in this game. That's a good point, G. Martinez. Weather in Ball State could be a little iffy tomorrow night, which could explain why that total is stuck at 48. So we'll have to check into that before we pull the trigger on the over there. But yeah, weather at this time of year, especially in the outdoor venues, always worth.
Yeah, there's a little wind, some wind and rain
consideration. So maybe pump the brakes on the over. Like I said, we'll see closer to a kickoff. But nevertheless, in this game, Ohio 3 wins in their last 4 games. Kent State, though, for as bad as they are, winless football team. They obviously have one of the worst defenses in the MAC and all of college football, quite frankly. They're down. Of course, they've also had some attrition at the quarterback position. Kent State, throughout the course of the year, we're talking about a team that has lost Devin Karkman, J.D. Sherrod, Drew DeShields, all the injury out for the season. They're down to Tommy Ulatowski, who I think came into the year as the 3rd quarterback on the depth chart for the Golden Flashes. And again, he's inconsistent to say the least. 11 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's actually only completing 42.6% of his passes. Not exactly what you want to see, as far as a completion rate. He can move the ball, but he's also very inaccurate at times. That's what would concern me here about Kent State. But somehow, some way, they've covered a couple numbers in their recent games. At Bowling Green, they lost by 21 as 24-point dogs. Ball State losing by 2. They were 3-point dogs. They covered. But there's also been some games in conference play where they've been absolutely steamrolled, losing by 19 at home to Eastern Michigan, losing by 31 in their last game against Western Michigan. And for Ohio, they're right there in the conference race, but we're talking about they just need to win the game. They don't need to cover. This is one where, again, I lean to the dog, but boy, it's kind of a leap of faith. You're only getting 18, though, too, because we've seen them cover against in their last game, they were getting 24. They lost by 21 to Bowling Green. They lose by 21 here. You're not going to get the money. But I think it's just a few too many to be laying with Ohio, especially for as decent as Navarro has been at times. As many interceptions as touchdown passes as an 18-point road favorite. That's not exactly the profile I want to see out of my quarterback. What do you think here, Connor Mack? Ohio, Kent State.
Yeah, and a lot of these teams, like in the MAC, you want them at home. Like Ohio, better team. They're just not a team on the road that you want to go and lay points with. I think if you like Ohio, maybe look at their team total, because one thing they should have a ton of success here is running the football. Yeah, Kent State is just horrific. Basically, dead last. 265, and that's what they want to do. I mean, they pound the rock.
They run it way more than throw it. 100%. And Kent State can't stop anything on the ground. One of the worst in the country against the run. So that could be trouble against Ohio.
That could be. So I think you just continue to do that. Now, I don't really want to lay the points like you were talking about. Kent State, I can't back this team. The defense is too off. Ulatowski, you mentioned, I saw enough of him at times that he come in last year. This year, dual threat kid, but he's pretty horrific passing.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, he is.
Yeah, I kind of look at Ohio, their team total, because I'd be leery of the 18 points, even though they should win here. Kent State's just been pretty awful in this role. They've had a few though. A few covers, no wins. But I don't know when that shows up. The 2 home games other than the St. Francis were 52-33. So that would just miss. And then the close one, Ball State, 37-35. So what do we get? I don't know.
All right, this is the Tuesday and Wednesday MACtion. Is probably the best game of the bunch. Northern Illinois and Western Michigan, most competitively lined game of the bunch, clearly. Northern Illinois, 1.5-point road favorites in Kalamazoo here. 52.5 the total in this game. There's a lot of love here for Northern Illinois because Western Michigan opened the favorite. Western Michigan's the team that's undefeated here in conference play. They've won and covered 3 straight against, well, again, not exactly the cream of the crop in the conference. Akron, not that great. Kent State's the worst team. Buffalo is way down, having a rough year. So this is a step up in class here for Western Michigan. But let's not forget that Western Michigan was a team that covered at Wisconsin early in the year, played Marshall, played them pretty tough in that one, losing by 7. We'll see how this one plays out. Northern Illinois, I kind of feel Northern Illinois is still living off the Notre Dame win. And people still think, well, because of the Notre Dame win, look how good this team is. Well, since that Notre Dame win, they've covered 2-point spreads. They're 2-4 against the number. I'm not that surprised. You have a win like that, you become overvalued. And people kind of started to overvalue this Northern Illinois team a little bit. And sure enough, we have seen in the last few games, they lose to Toledo as favorites. They lose outright at Ball State as favorites in their last game. That's not what you want to see. I think these are kind of 2 teams going in opposite directions. I get you can pick away a little bit at the strength of schedule here for Western Michigan and conference play. But I see regression in the Northern Illinois offense. I see too many turnovers out of this offense, and Ethan Hampton in the quarterback, hasn't done a good enough job with ball security in some of these recent games here for Northern Illinois. Meanwhile, you look at this Western Michigan offense, I like what I'm seeing out of them. Hayden Wolf, the transfer out of Old Dominion, man, he's been really good. 15 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 69% completions. I don't get the love for Northern Illinois here. I don't. I'm not convinced they deserve to be road favorites. I don't know if I was going to bet this game initially, but now with Western Michigan a home dog, and this might even move higher. If this gets to 3, I'm definitely taking Western here in this game. C-Mac, what do you think here? Northern Illinois, Western Michigan.
Yeah, when I look at that, what kind of gives here? Northern Illinois on this total been unbelievable, been very good to the under. The few times I've been on them. Western Michigan been a great over team. This team could score. The defense isn't as good. So can Western Michigan, who runs it pretty good. Of course, that's what a lot of these teams want to do with the MAC. But Northern Illinois has been kind of the best defensive team numbers-wise, against the run, even against the pass. Can they do something here? That spells this game's going to be close. You're right, though. It seems like Northern Illinois is kind of living off that win. Then they lose a tough one to NC State. But the last 2, especially at Ball State, was just ugly. I think this number was, if this was a little bit lower, I kind of like the over with a MAC. It seems like Northern Illinois can have success, finally score a little bit where they've struggled. It's just, they're very slow. So that's what's keeping me off. I think it's a little bit too high, even though I think this is a game we could get some points.
Yeah, I do lean to that over as well. But like I said, now that they're a home dog, I'm interested with Western Michigan. I think they got the better quarter. That's going to be the key. Western Michigan running versus Northern Illinois stopping the run. That's strength versus strength. Yeah. But I think at the end of the day, if this game's close, I think I trust Wolf more at the quarterback spot.
Than Hampton?
Yeah. I do. And I think that could be the difference. All right, so that's MACtion for Tuesday and Wednesday. Let's move to Thursday now, where we have the Florida Atlantic Owls taking on the East Carolina Pirates. The Pirates. We've got East Carolina, 7.5-point home favorites, 57.5 the total in this game. So we have 2 games coming up Thursday, Friday, 1 on each night, where we have examples of a team showing a pulse after a coaching change. And in this case, it's East Carolina after firing Mike Houston. I wanted after the Army loss, I wanted to see how they came out against Temple, and they put the boots to Temple. And look, Temple had been playing a little bit better, in recent games prior to the ECU game. And East Carolina, it's by far the best game offensively they've had all year. Caton Hauser's taken over as quarterback from Michigan State, the transfer. He's been solid, throwing the football. 5 touchdowns in that win. Rajai Harris, 130 rushing yards as well. The offense exploded in that victory over Temple. Defense still leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, they did give up 34 points to Evan Simon at quarterback and that Temple offense. But for a team that's just had such a disappointing season, you wanted to see if there was life in East Carolina. And I think they showed it in that game against Temple after the coaching change. Meanwhile, Florida Atlantic has fallen apart. I thought that number, especially even with with Archie at quarterback for South Florida, I thought that number was cheap on South Florida. South Florida faced a murderer's row schedule, too. So many good teams on their schedule, South Florida. It kind of felt like it was a step down in class for them. And sure enough, South Florida ended up rolling past Florida Atlantic in that game, 44-21. This defense is just completely awful the last few games for Florida Atlantic. 41 allowed to North Texas, 38 to UTSA, 44 to South Florida. And their quarterback, especially their offense, but especially their quarterback, is not good enough to make up for a bad defense. I've never been Cam Fancher fan. He is just not consistent enough, turns the ball over. Still a lot of issues there. I think for East Carolina, I saw enough of life from them that I'm tempted to lay the points here with ECU at home. I mean, there's nothing to like right now but Florida Atlantic. Quarterback play is not good enough. The offense is not consistent enough, and the defense can't stop anybody right now. And the one thing we've seen from ECU is this offense get a shot in the arm with Caton Hauser at quarterback. So I like the favorite here. And I'll probably lay the points with ECU. I could only look over this total. I mean, ECU offensively is still better than they are defensively. And with Florida Atlantic defensively, they've crumbled in the last 3 games. And all 3 of those games have gone way over the total. So for me, it would be ECU in the over in this game. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, the move with Hauser's been good. He's still the turnovers there, but it hasn't been awful. The numbers were at FAU. They just didn't get it done, and then they got down and got their ass kicked late. If you got Fancher, you can't trust him at all. I'm with you because of what I've seen the last few weeks. I still don't love this East Carolina defense laying these points here, Bavano. So maybe this total gets over the number, but the win against UTSA and then the beatdown at Temple, this is a game for them. Another one where they could win here, get to 5-4. I think they can, but I don't want to lay 7.5. So good luck.
I will just because FAU's been that awful here these last few weeks. I mean,
they've been tough to watch, and they've been dreadful on the road. Dreadful. I'll be right back.
All right, good stuff. C-Mac back in a moment. All right, we'll move along to the other game on Thursday night, Appalachian State and Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina, 1-point home favorites in this game. The total currently 62 across the board in this one. App State, look, this is the team that's definitely underachieved. This is a team that has not played as well as I think we all thought, but they are off back-to-back wins. First time all season they've had back-to-back wins, beating Georgia State at home, although they didn't cover that game. They were 7.5-point favorites. They won by 7. And then against a very good Old Dominion team, especially the way ODU has been playing of late with Colton Joseph at quarterback. That was probably one of the better performances I've seen all year on both sides of the ball from App State. Offensively, from Aguilar, he was better, and that's about as good as I've seen the defense play, forcing some turnovers, bending but not breaking in the red zone throughout the course of that game, and it ended up being a nice win for App State in the midst of a disappointing year. They still got outgained, though, by Old Dominion, but again, they made the stops count. They forced some turnovers, and again, Old Dominion just didn't finish as many of their drives with touchdowns as I think they'd like. That defense is still leaky a bit for App State, but at least it was a step in the right direction. Meanwhile, Coastal Carolina, they've lost 3 in a row, and things are starting to head back downhill a bit for them. Blown out by James Madison They lose to Louisiana, the Ragin' Cajuns, although they're a pretty good team. But what's the excuse for losing off a bye week as 4-point road favorites to Troy, who we've talked about on this show all season? They're way down from where they've been in the past. It's not a good look at all for Coastal. Shredded on the defensive side of the football by a Troy offense that hadn't done, a whole lot prior to that game. They couldn't stop the run. I mean, they just ran like crazy over this Coastal defense. Damian Taylor and Gerald Green in particular combining for over 300 rushing yards against this Coastal Carolina defense. Not exactly the kind of defense you want to see here for Coastal Carolina going into this game. The good news, though, for them here is Appalachian State hasn't run the football that well this year. And obviously, if Coastal's going to struggle against the run, you don't want to be up against a team that can run the football well. Appalachian State's run offense has been spotty. We know the run defense has been horrible for Coastal. They prefer to throw the ball. It might not be as bad of a matchup for Coastal because, again, App State struggled to run the football at times. Even though I'm seeing some improvement from App State, we're still talking about a team that I'm not ready to trust them to go on the road and win. This team, other than a narrow victory against East Carolina, who, as we talked about, have kind of disappointed this year. They get blown out by Clemson. They get blown out by 15 at Marshall. They lose by 10 at Louisiana. So they've only got the one road win on the season, App State. Not easy to trust Coastal after. That was so bad for Coastal last week. Out of a bye week with extra time, and that's the way you play against Troy. Not a good look for Coastal, so it's not easy to trust them. But I trust App State on the road to win even less. So I'll lean Coastal here around to pick them at home. I think the over could get there. I don't know if I trust these defenses right now. C-Mac back with us. Connor, what do you think here? App State, Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, Coastal Carolina, it just seems like maybe that's not who they truly were kind of early on. I mean, those first, they scored, 55? I remember against Jacksonville State.
How the hell did they beat Jacksonville State? Because Jacksonville State's been so good ever since then.
I don't know what. Yeah,
turnovers
with all these guys back. Yeah, they got just punched in the mouth, and by halftime, they were down 28-7. Yeah, turnovers hasn't been good for them. On the other side, for App State, the best thing for App State, I talk about it all the time, is Old Dominion, and they shot themselves in the foot. 4 turnovers, 3 fumbles, especially in the second half. The only thing is the App State at home had a little bit allure. They're a dog. And every time I always talk about, the week before they got it done. That line actually moved not in their favor too. Yeah. Against what was it, Georgia State the week before, right? Yeah, against Georgia State.
Georgia State, yep.
Had a big win. But it just seems like when they're a favorite, watch out. They're in that game and they lost. So this is a tough one for me. Both teams can score. These defenses are not very good. There should be turnovers. I just worry maybe the total's a little bit high. I mean, in the end, I don't know if it gets there. I think at 62.5, it's just a little bit up there. But I do think we can get some points in this one. And I want neither of these two teams. I think App State was at home. I think they could be a look. I can't take them on the road. So, well.
No, I understand that, no doubt. But like I say, I lean Coastal a little bit. But I have a lack of trust in both.
Hopefully they flip the switch.
Right, but yeah, that's why I don't have as much trust in Coastal. I should want to take them because I don't trust App State on the road. But my goodness, you come out of the bye week and that's how you play against Troy, who have been obviously way down this year compared to where they were last year. That's alarming. That's alarming for Coastal. We'll see if they can bounce back. All right, Friday night, college football, California and Wake Forest, ACC matchup. Cal 7-point road favorites, 55 the total. We'll see how this one plays out. Wake Forest has got no defense. We know that. We've seen that on display all year. They are off a bye week. Both of these teams are actually coming into this one, so we'll see how it plays out. But neither of these teams played last week. Cal off the 44-7 win against Oregon State, dominant at home. I'll say this now about Cal. Cal's made these road trips 3 times this year to the East. At Auburn, they won outright as dogs. Florida State, they lost by 5. Not a good loss looking back on it, given how Florida State's been. But they also covered it in a tough 2-point loss to Pitt, who were previously undefeated before they got blasted by SMU over the weekend. So they haven't been that bad in these travel spots. Question is, do you want to lay 7 with them here on the road? Wake Forest is not a team that's been good in the favorites role, but, they beat UConn as a slight road favorite. They were a 3-point favorite against Stanford. They won by 3. They are a dog here. We did see them get blasted by Clemson as an underdog, but they also did win outright on the road as an underdog against NC State. Bachmeier, obviously, at quarterback here for Wake Forest. We'll see how he fares. This is a Cal defense that, I'll be honest, you look at them the last handful of games, they played solid. They bottled up a pretty good Pitt offense, held them to 17 points, shut down Oregon State. Yeah, they had the loss against NC State, but C.J. Bailey and that NC State offense is really improving. C.J. Bailey is one of the more improved quarterbacks. He's getting better and better each week for NC State. We saw what they just did against Stanford over the weekend. But I like this Cal defense. I know they had the bad night against Miami, but everyone's giving up points to Cam Ward in Miami right now. So we'll see how this one plays out. I'm indifferent on it. Cal, to me, is the better team. They've had some success traveling east, which hasn't always been the case with a lot of teams. But I don't know if I want to lay 7. I don't know if I can trust Wake. There's a big difference in defensive ability with these two teams. Wake defensively has struggled all year, giving up points in bunches. I'm not sure that's going to change here necessarily. And we like Mendoza and Jaden Ott, that nice that nice quarterback running back tandem here for Cal. What do you think here in this one, Connor Mack, Cal, Wake Forest?
Yeah, but like Nick just put in, where has Ott been this year?
Yeah.
He's caught a little bit more, but I mean, his numbers running it just haven't been there. It's just been strange. Both these teams are quicker. The pace of plays, Wake's high, and even Cal a lot more. I think they're top 25, right around there. The defense looked really good, last 2 weeks ago. They're off the bye. Wake, to these teams, they've gone under 3 straight. This one feels like there could be points in this one. I just don't love that we're at 54.5 because I think this could get over. And Cal's a better team. No way am I laying a touchdown with them. It'd be Wake or nothing.
All right, Wake or nothing for Connor Mack in this one. All right, let's go to Rice and Memphis, also on Friday night, AAC matchup. Memphis 9.5-point home favorites, 52 the total in this one. Talked about East Carolina, pulse, a life, a new energy for the team after the coaching change. Well, Rice fired Mike Bloomgren after they lost to UConn, 17-10. First game after the coaching change was last week against a Navy team that had 1 loss going into last week, and of course that was against Notre Dame. And look, that game took forever to finish. There was a lightning delay. It took a long time to get that game going again, but it finally did. And Rice just really dominant, to be quite honest with you. Very impressive against a Navy team that has had a great season. But 24-10 Rice. Again, you're looking for signs that a team is going to get energized by a coaching change. Will they respond to it or will they not respond to it? East Carolina did respond first game after the coaching change, and so did Rice. E.J. Warner had a very good game throwing the ball. Dean Connors, 105 rushing yards, and also catching the ball out of the backfield as well. The offense was humming, 344 yards. The defense had a good game. They did a nice job bottling up that Navy offense for the most part. So definitely good signs for Rice coming out of the coaching change. Rice, despite the struggles this year, they've actually covered 3 of the last 4. They're 3-6. They've got 3 games left, including this one against Memphis, and then they play UAB and South Florida after that. They're going to have to win all 3 to get bowl eligible, but South Florida's been up and down. UAB is a game they can win. And with what I've seen from Memphis the last few games, this is a game that they could win too. I mean, Memphis, back to the old Memphis Tigers, can't stop anything on defense. It's a problem. Chandler Morris, North Texas, up and down the field. Now they win that game because of Hennigan and the offense bailing them out, but that's what we're seeing. Right now, Hennigan and the offense is bailing them out. 33-28 against Charlotte. They don't cover. Last week, they lose outright as 7-point road favorites at UTSA in the Alamo Dome, 44-36. Can't stop anything. They let Owen McCown just go crazy. 4 touchdowns, 280 yards passing. shredded in the secondary. Not what you want to see right now. And EJ Warner can sling the rock. He's a guy that played well at times at Temple. Didn't start the season well for Rice, but he's starting to play better. I'm on Rice here, 100%. And I'm not alone because this opened at 11, and it's all the way down to 9.5. So there's a lot of people liking Rice, and I agree. I think there's a live dog. I wouldn't even be shocked if they win outright. Memphis is falling off. The defense can't stop anybody. What else is new? It's been the same old shit for Memphis for years. Their offense is so good, but their defense can't stop a nosebleed. And, it's starting to look like that from Memphis the last few weeks. Give me Rice here. I think they're live. What do you think here, C-Mac? Rice, Memphis. Lean over, too.
Yeah, just a horrific, start to the year for Rice. One thing, and they should, depending on the number, it's a push. It's that law is 6.5, depending on what you got. But they've played really, really well in all these games. And the big win, the defense has been a lot better, in these games for Rice. They've really, really stepped up. And all year we talked about how fraudulent this Memphis team was, and who they were playing, and kind of getting by. One thing though, Rice, the offense is better. I like with Warner. Can they score? On the road's been trouble for them. They've just been awful, 0-4. But we're seeing more of this Memphis defense. It's kind of these teams they play: North Texas, Charlotte, UTSA, that want to get up and down. There's been more points, so I don't know what we get, but I'm with you, especially if you got over the 10 or 10. I even think it's all right at 9.5, but it'd be better if you had a 10.5 in your pocket. I think this game is close. These games have been tight before. I think Rice can hang around. Give me Rice. I agree.
All right. We are in agreement there, Connor Mack and I. Live road underdog here with Rice. Again, you're looking for signs that a team is showing life after the coaching change, and we saw that big time from Rice. Wire to wire.
It seems like the Memphis 3-point win, 7-point win. It just has it written all over it in this game. Just real tight, yeah.
Yeah, maybe Memphis escapes with the win, but like I said, for Rice to lead wire to wire and win outright like that as a double-digit underdog against Navy, I was very impressed, which tells me this team has not quit on the season, that they responded in a positive manner to the coaching change, and I think they have a chance to be right in this game as well here on Friday night against a Memphis team that suddenly isn't stopping anybody all over again. All right, next up, we've got a Big Ten matchup on Friday night, Iowa and UCLA in the Rose Bowl. Iowa, 6.5-point road favorites. Total in this game sitting at 44.5, pretty much across the board. I can't believe I'm saying this with an Iowa game, but maybe I shouldn't be shocked anymore saying this because of the fact that the way things have trended for the Iowa Hawkeyes as far as totals are concerned. They're 8-1 to the over, but I think I like the over in this game. They have found something, believe it or not, with Brendan Sullivan at quarterback. I'm not saying he's great, but he's given them a pulse to finally some semblance of a passing game to complement Caleb Johnson, the great running back they have, which has been good to see. He's put up some decent numbers. They haven't asked him to do too much, but he's not screwing up like McNamara did. So I think he's managing things well. We'll see if that continues here against this UCLA Bruins team. You look at UCLA, the one thing, in my opinion, that would concern me a little bit for Iowa is that UCLA's run defense been pretty stout. Number 11 in the country, 100.4 rushing yards per game allowed. And Johnson's still a big part, the biggest part by far of what they do on offense, running the football with him. And if he gets neutralized a little bit and again, UCLA's run defense, their numbers are pretty solid. That'll put more on Brendan Sullivan's plate at quarterback. Does he have the goods to get it done? Meanwhile, what's happened to UCLA in terms of they're playing a lot better and their offense has suddenly really picked things up. I thought a product of their offense improving was just, Rutgers is beaten up and decimated by injuries on defense. That's why UCLA looked so good on offense. But no, they backed it up against what's supposed to be, a pretty decent Nebraska defense on the road. And Garber's had a very efficient game, 219 through the air, 2 touchdown passes. He got his receivers, Matavau and Gilmer, involved. He even ran 56 yards with the football as well, Garber's, from the quarterback spot. And he's progressively improved here these last few games. Iowa taking the long trip from Iowa City out to the West Coast. UCLA been a bit of a undervalued machine. They got off to such a bad start, and everybody soured on UCLA so quickly early in the season after, not looking good against Hawaii, blown out by Indiana. And ever since those first two really bad games, and we're finding out getting blown out by Indiana is not a bad thing anymore, because look at what Indiana's doing. They've been a freight train. So even that loss, it's looking like a much better loss now for UCLA, getting blown out at the Rose Bowl by 29. Since then, 5-1 against the spread. And their only non-cover was against Minnesota in a game they lost by 4. So I'm tempted to take UCLA here at home, plus the points, and dare Iowa to cover a number like this away from home. And I lean over the total. These are two surprisingly improving offenses right now. C-Mac, what do you think?
I think this line here is pretty sharp, because I'd be all over this if this was 7.5 with UCLA. But it's not. It's 6.5. Yeah, everything's looked really good for them. You hit on it too. And then one other key with UCLA is, Garbers plays like that, they're going to be in it. Like, he just can't have a horrible game at all. If he does, they don't cover in this game. But if he's playing like he has the last couple, I mean, you went in there. We see Nebraska, not who they were. We threw that out in the beginning of the year. Again, all that hype, especially early on. But yeah, if they could, run the ball. You talked about the tight end. The receivers have been well. We'll see. Can the UCLA defense, that's so great last year stopping the run, and then pretty good this year, playing the hardest schedule, or top 5 schedule out there, has kind of worked. But man, when they've had to play these teams, Iowa's better. But can they go into the Rose Bowl and win here by a touchdown? I don't know. And on this total with them, maybe this is finally one I'm interested in, which I haven't wanted to be in more. I've been on an over or two, is maybe the under in this game. Maybe, right around 45. It's moving up finally. We talked about last week. These numbers were at 40, and Locke was awful. I mean, he had some bad picks.
He was.
He just had one of those horrible games. Yep. And when you have it, when you look at it, even in the NFL, some of these colleges, these just horrific games where there's like 4 turnovers that never drove me more nuts. It seems like especially the last month. But now that I've been on a bet with a team that just crumbles, it's been awful. So yeah, I think this game's tight, and I lean under.
All right, UCLA and under. I'm UCLA and over with my leans here with Iowa and UCLA. All right, New Mexico, San Diego State. Last game for Friday night. We've got the Aztecs, 3-point home favorites, 68 being the total here in this game. My goodness. You know what? It's kind of like a pick your poison game. I mean, it clearly looks that way to me. You want to lay points with the Aztecs right now. It's not exactly something I'm running to do. They got beaten down by Boise State in a spot that was a good one for San Diego State. Maybe catching Boise off the big win against UNLV, but no, they were just they were powerless to stop that Boise offense. And the funny thing, it was not just Ashton Genty. He was a big part of it, as he always is, 149 rushing yards, but that's a quiet night for Ashton Genty. It was really the passing game. Maddox Madsen.
And they pulled him. He didn't even have to play the 4th, though.
No.
He didn't play the 4th, but yeah.
No, the passing game ripped apart San Diego State's defense. 322 passing yards, 307 of them from Maddox Madsen in that game last week against San Diego State. The defense is still a problem for Sean Lewis's team. I mean, 56 allowed to Boise, 29 to Washington State. The better offenses have had their way. But the problem is you can either lay points with this team defensively, which isn't very good, or you can take New Mexico. And I know they're the underdog. They're getting 3, but my goodness, how do you lose outright as favorites at home to Wyoming? Wyoming has been a complete and utter train wreck this year. And New Mexico loses to them at home as favorites, gives up 49 points to Caden Anderson in this Wyoming offense. Now, obviously, Dampier in the offense has been good, but again, another example of just how absolutely pathetic New Mexico has been on the defensive side of the football all year. I mean, my gosh, it looks like a mirage now that they only gave up 17 points to Colorado State. And of course, that was the game. There was some wind, though, in that game as well. They only scored 6. And then the other games, there's been no answers on defense. You go all the way back to the Arizona game, 61, 45 to Auburn, 38 to Fresno, 40 to New Mexico State, 37 to Air Force somehow. And Air Force doesn't have a good offense this year, 45 to Utah State. No, this has just been an absolute sieve of a defense here for poor Bronco Mendenhall. As he probably can't believe he's got a defense this bad, but he does. You're going to get pace from San Diego State and a little bit from New Mexico, and I don't trust either defense. I know it's a high total, 68, but I'm still leaning over with this game. C-Mac, what do you think?
I know. How could it not? And Wyoming went easy over, and I couldn't believe the week before it didn't go over against Utah State in that game. Too many field goals, but the teams went up and down. In New Mexico, I think even at this number, it goes over 67.5.
Yep.
San Diego State should do whatever. San Diego State should do whatever they want here on offense. But New Mexico, hey, they could score.
Yep.
Quarterback's good. We've talked about it.
We like Dampier
all year.
He's been abandoned by his defense. He's been good. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and even last week, they ran 400 yards. He had 200. Sanders had 200. So San Diego State might win this, but no way I'm laying 3.5. I think this game could be tight. I kind of lean to New Mexico and the over. I just think we get points. This gets into another kind of shootout. It is high at 67.5, 68, but I don't know if I bet it, but it's a lean.
All right, let's move now to Saturday. The rest of the games on this Hitting the Book show for Saturday taking place. Virginia and Pitt. We've got Pittsburgh 7.5-point home favorites, 57.5 the total. This is one of my favorite angles in college football. Doesn't always work, but I find it works more often than not. I like fading the team after this deep into the season that just lost their first game of the season, and we have that here. Pittsburgh undefeated, brought back down to earth, and gets absolutely steamrolled by SMU. Their defense just could not do anything against Kevin Jennings. He did a tap dance all over that Pitt Panthers defense. And I don't want to make it seem like Pittsburgh's a fraud, but there weren't a lot of quality wins on their resume going into that game against SMU.
It showed in the number.
Yeah.
Last week,
exactly.
yeah.
The odds makers didn't respect that undefeated record, and apparently the odds makers were correct to not respect that undefeated record because they got blasted by easily the best team Pitt's played all year. Now, Virginia, not SMU. But Virginia is a capable enough offensive team. They've been pretty good, at least decent in this role when they've been getting not just points as a dog, but getting, a touchdown or more. And I just worry, when you go this long into the year and then you have that, kind of shell shock type of loss like Pitt did against SMU, because you can say what you want. We didn't really fully trust Pitt to compete with SMU, but I'm sure they believed they could. And then to just get trampled like that, it's really tough. Now, the one concern I have for Virginia is I don't love the way they played that final game before their bye week against North Carolina. I mean, losing 41-14, that shouldn't happen against a team like North Carolina. Calandria struggled. Tony for the first time this year, and Tony Muskett actually took over. We'll have to see where Tony Elliott's going to turn at quarterback. I would think he's going to still go back to Calandria here. It was his first really rough game of the year, and it looks like it is going to be Calandria again. They are off a bye week, so you got Virginia with extra time to prepare. And this is something to pay attention to in college football this time of year, the late bye weeks. The teams that are going to get those late October and November bye weeks, when they've played every week from September to now, and now just finally getting that bye week. It's like, it's incredibly beneficial to these teams. You've played a lot of football. The aches and pains and the bumps and the bruises have added up, and you're fatigued, you're worn down, you're beaten down, and then you get that bye week, Connor Mack, in November, and it's like, wow, we come out with hope springs eternal, and you got new energy, and you feel a lot fresher all of a sudden when you get a bye week this late in the season. So I'm kind of thinking that could happen here for Virginia. But more than anything, this is, to me, let's fade the team after their first loss. This long into the year and you lose that first game, sometimes could be a hangover effect into the next game as well. So I like Virginia here, getting more than a touchdown off a bye week too. Good spot. good price, good number. Yeah, give me UVA here. CMAC, what do you think?
Yeah, I get why you're looking at Virginia and the bye. It sounds good, especially after just kind of the worst loss all year, where I thought they've looked on the road pretty good. I mean, at Wake, the close win, at Coastal, they beat them up and, hung around and covered that number against Clemson, even though Clemson did whatever they wanted and scored. They need to go back to Calandria. I know he had the bad day, but Muscat is a no-go at all.
Before that dud against North Carolina, they'd covered 4 in a row, I should point out, with Virginia.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. This has been a really bad place for Virginia to go.
Yes.
Is at Pitt. That's the one thing. And after Pitt getting their ass kicked, but is Pitt for real? I mean, they have the crazy game. The defense, I think, has been a little bit better. We saw it just get shredded though as they go on the road. They pick off the pick sixes. I thought they played better against Cal at home. They're just at home is where you kind of want them. But I don't know if I want to lay 7.5. I mean, I kind of lean their way here. If this was lower, I'd be all over Pitt here. If it was under a touchdown.
All right. So Connor, I think, likes Pitt, leans Pitt, but again, doesn't like where the number
just
is.
A little high with the hook,
And first loss of the year to me, I like I say, I worry about when you get to 7-0, 8-0, 9-0, and you lose that first game. I think it's an even harder pill to swallow than, say, if you're 2-0, 3-0, and then you lose that first game. This long into the season, we'll see. And I like Virginia off the bye, fresher, get some ailing bodies back on both sides of the ball as well. So, like I say, plus the points for me on Virginia. Keep an eye on the weather. There's a chance of some showers Saturday in Pitt, because I'm a little surprised the total hasn't gone up a little bit, because I lean over. But again, we'll wait to see what the weather is here closer to kickoff on Saturday. All right, next up, we've got Florida and Texas in the SEC. Texas, 21.5-point home favorites total. Currently 48 in this game. Big news for the quarterback spot. Obviously, look, we saw I don't know how the hell they stayed in that game, Florida. And if I'm Georgia, I'm wondering how the hell we played so poorly in that game. And that's about as upsetting as I'm sure Kirby Smart feels about a win, considering the circumstances last week, that they didn't rip apart that Florida team that's losing bodies left and right, that saw DJ Lagway get injured. They have to put in, obviously, the next man up at quarterback for the Gators. And, of course, that ended up being Aiden Warner, who had to come into that game after Lagway got hurt. Of course, they're already lost Graham Mertz for the season. Warner really struggled, but again, he's being thrown into the fire, cold off the bench because of an injury against Georgia. And of course, he's going to struggle. 7 for 22 in that game, throwing the football against Georgia. Will he play this? Will he have to play this Saturday? Is Billy Napier going to have to get him ready, Aiden Warner, for this game? Well, just earlier today in his press conference, Billy Napier said DJ Lagway's injury not as bad as they thought initially, and that he still could play on Saturday. And he's
when he was on crutches, I thought he was done.
Yeah,
I know. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And now all of a sudden he still hasn't been ruled out yet for this game against Texas. So we'll see. He's an upgrade from Warner. Warner just looked like deer in the headlights against Georgia. And even if he does get the start, and even with a week of practice to get ready, which should help him, I mean, Texas's defense is pretty damn good too. So it's not going to be any easier for Warner if he has to play again. So I'd certainly, if Florida's going to have any chance to compete in this game, they'll certainly have a better chance, in my opinion, with DJ Lagway, who's also got some mobility, which should help against a defense like this. But again, we'll have to wait and see his status. And that's where I'm at with this game. We'll wait and see if Lagway's in to determine what we do. But I'll say this. I am kind of interested in the Florida side. They have shown some incredible fight, some incredible character, some incredible resilience, and they have fought their butts off against some really good teams like Georgia. Like they were just, losing bodies and down to their third string quarterback, and yet there they were right in that game, start to finish, against Georgia. They've covered 5 in a row, including a near win at Tennessee, blowing out Kentucky. They've been really rallying the troops and trying to, I think, save their coach's job and doing everything they can. And don't look now. Texas, all of a sudden, they've failed to cover 3 of their last 4. They lose outright to Georgia, didn't sniff a cover, escape with a 3-point win at Vandy in their last game. They are off a bye, so Sarkisian and the Longhorns are off a bye going into this game. So that's good news for them, and that's an advantage for them here in this game. But 21.5 with this scrappy, will not say die attitude of this Gators team right now. I'm tempted to take the points, but again, I want some more clarity when it comes to the quarterback situation for Florida before I make my move. What do you think here, Connor? Florida, Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be quick. If Warner is playing, I'm going to take the Florida team total under.
And the full game under, probably worth a look too if he doesn't play.
Maybe, but I'll definitely take their team total over. We'll see.
I mean, Florida's defense sucked at the beginning of the year. Let's give them some credit. They made Carson Beck look like a bag of shit for half that.
Well, we're going to get to him. There's problems with him. There's throws that he made, but there's so many he can't make and the mistakes. And another game with 3 picks. Yep. So and that kept Florida in the game, especially especially in the first half. So, but Texas off the bye, I think they play well here. Maybe look at their team total, could get there. I think they play a better game. And yeah, how much they've gotten better. I don't know how great still the Florida defense is, but they've definitely taken some steps, from early on where I saw them. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like I said, we'll wait and see if Lagway plays. If he doesn't, I think it's an under. If Lagway does play, it might still be an under, but I would certainly lean a little more to Florida if he's in there. I mean, that's a lot of points, and all of a sudden Texas,
Hey, they covered. Yeah, they still covered Florida. It was by
One concern too for Florida is that was a pretty exhausting game with Georgia. Do they have another one in the tank, or are they going to run out of gas here? There is some fear for me with that. Maybe running out of gas here a little bit, but I still lean Florida with all these points. All right, we got West Virginia and Cincinnati. The Bearcats, 5-point home favorites, 56.5 the total here in this game. Obviously, we have talked about how West Virginia's had a disappointing year. That being said, the last time we saw West Virginia, it was a pretty solid performance from them against Arizona, although Arizona's had their own issues, and we saw that again getting absolutely steamrolled by UC. So I really think you got to be careful giving West Virginia a ton of credit for beating Arizona. Arizona's just face planted, and we saw what happened to Arizona against UCF this past weekend. They are off a bye week. Both of these teams are. I still think Cincinnati might be the better team. I like the way Sorsby's played. And before the Colorado loss, before the bye week, they beat Arizona State by 10 at home, a very good Arizona State team. They won outright as dogs at UCF, lose by 3 to Texas Tech on the road. They shut out Houston 34-0 at home. They should have beat Pitt at home way back in the early part of the year. They had a big lead, and they blew it in the second half. They've been pretty good at Nippert Stadium here. Both teams off a bye, so there's no advantage there. But I think the number might be just a little bit short here on Cincy. I'm leaning to the Bearcats here, -5. What do you think here, Connor Mack?
Yeah, when I look at this one, I think Cincy, but I really didn't want to lay over a field goal in this game. West Virginia, Arizona's just that bad. I mean, how good was that, the last win?
And Garrett Green got benched for West Virginia against Arizona. And Nico Marchiol actually played pretty solid his first start, but I need to see more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he looked solid against the Arizona team. 18 for 22. He threw for 196 and a couple TDs. Yeah, so we will see if that continues. I need to see more. One thing, I thought Cincinnati's defense has been pretty good all year. And this West Virginia team, they're just not lighting it up. I was looking at this under last night when I was going through the games. I thought this total was just too high at 56.5. So I like the under here.
All right, under for Connor Mack with West Virginia and Cincinnati. All right, we go to Arrowhead Stadium. This is a neutral field environment for Iowa State and Kansas. We've got Iowa State 3-point favorites, the total 50. You would expect there'll be a lot of people traveling, I'm sure, from Ames, but still you would expect to be more Jayhawk faithful in attendance for this game. I like Kansas here, +3. This is what we talked about with Pitt. You go this deep into the season undefeated, and what a heartbreaker for Iowa State to lose against Texas Tech, and I thought Texas Tech could give them a game. I'm telling you what, fade the
Yeah, me
teams
too.
laying big points this deep into the regular season when they're undefeated, and you cash some tickets. Like look at this game as a perfect. Unfortunately, Duke should have covered. That was just a brutal
No, that
beat
was
for anyone on. That was
disgraceful.
ridiculous. I mean, they're up by they were think about it, they were 21.5-point fucking underdog, and they're leading in the third quarter, and somehow they don't cover. That's unbelievable. But you deserve better if you had Duke. But but again, that should have cashed. My point is, betting against teams that are undefeated this late in the season is a good way to go, and it did come through with Texas Tech for me against Iowa State. Now could be a little bit of a hangover. And look, I credit Lance Leipold. You want to know why he's a good coach too? This could have easily gotten away from Kansas like this whole season. And I know they're still only 2-6, but since their bye week, when things were really falling apart, they had all those games where they were in the game and they blew it late and they lost on the last possession. All those games, Illinois, UNLV, West Virginia, TCU, go on down the list, all those gut-wrenching losses Kansas suffered. Well, they flipped the switch. They turned the page coming out of the bye week. And out of the bye week, they nearly beat Arizona State. And then they get the win against Houston. They blow them out. And then again against Kansas State over the weekend, a really good K-State team. They could have won that game right there, 29-27. So we have seen kind of new life here from Kansas the last few weeks. And they're showing that they haven't quit on this season, even though it's been a bit of a disappointing one for Jalen Daniels and company. And Iowa State coming off the first loss, the bubble burst, the dream crusher, if you will, although they're still very much alive to win the Big 12, so they shouldn't be too much out of it. But they're definitely out of the playoff now. No, that's not true. They could, if they whoever wins the Big 12 is in the playoff, so they could still get in. But that's now their only pathway. They have to win the conference, or else they're not getting in the playoff. I still think coming off that heartbreaker, losing in your first game of the year in that kind of fashion, not easy for me to lay points on the road or in a quasi-road game. It will be more of a Jayhawk crowd, I think, here at Arrowhead Stadium. But I still lean Kansas here, +3. C-Mac, what do you think?
So do I. Of course, I love at least what I've seen since the bye. You know, the beat up of Houston and then the close loss to K-State. Because I only went on them once and lost, Bavano, and just the folding in the second half, it has me a little bit scared in this game. But Iowa State, they're a little bit frauds here. And the defense is kind of shown. For UCF, they just gave up so many yards, especially on the ground. Morton had a few picks, but they had their own turnover zone dealing in that game. But I think this Kansas team, with especially if he's a clean game here with Neal running the football, I think they're in it as well. I just don't buy Iowa State at all. And I was very happy with Texas Tech in that game as well. So I lean the Jayhawks here.
All right. Yeah, we were both on Texas Tech, big underdogs. That's where we want to bet Texas Tech, and they get the big win in Ames, and we'll see how Iowa State responds.
Do we see better defense here? Because I go the Kansas games at this number have gone over.
And Iowa State's an over team this year. Defense has regressed, and their offense is good. Yep, better with that.
Are we going to see maybe defense? Because at this number, I lean over.
Me too. I'm with you. This is not that same Iowa State defense either. We're definitely seeing that play out right now, no doubt. All right, next up, we've got Miami and Georgia Tech in this ACC matchup. It is Miami 11-point road favorites. The total sitting at 64, pretty much across the board in this one. Gosh, if you had Duke, man, that is such a ridiculous beat. I mean, this is a team that was a 3-touchdown underdog, actually leading the game outright in the third quarter, and they can't cover as 21-point dogs. Brutal stuff. They became a turnover machine in the fourth quarter. Malik Murphy played 2.5 tremendous quarters and then fell apart. Really, the whole offense.
Turnovers. That's one of the games where I talk about all those turnovers. That was one that I've had. Just crazy.
I had the over 2, so it split, but still, it should have been 2-0. Should have been 2-0.
Yeah, I had a little bit.
Yeah. Should have been 2-0. Yeah, brutal stuff if you had Duke. That's not going to get me to shy away from fading Miami again here in this game. Although this time I might go between the first half and the full game when it comes to taking Georgia Tech here in this game. But I just don't trust this Miami defense. And we're seeing the Miami they're actually getting worse by the week, and Duke was stopping themselves. If not for the turnovers, they were not getting stops. That's how Miami was stopping Duke, the turnovers. But when you have to line up and actually get a stop on defense they're not doing it right now. And like I say, suddenly they actually should be 1-4 against the spread instead of 2-3 against the spread their last 5 games. Like I say, yes, we know Cam Ward is amazing. Damian Martinez running the ball along with Mark Fletcher, and then you've got Xavier Restrepo and Jacoby George and Isaiah Horton and company in the receiving game. We know the offense is incredible, but this defense is leaky, and it seems to be getting worse, not better, by the week. The question now becomes, can Georgia Tech take advantage of that? You look at Miami on defense this season, and when the overall team numbers bear out that as far as pass defense and run defense, they've been a lot better run defense. So that's going to be interesting to see with Georgia Tech being more of a run-first offense. Can they have that kind of success here running the football against Miami? Miami's been shredded in the secondary lately, but at least they've been a little bit better as far as stopping the run. It looks like for this game, Georgia Tech, Haynes King still has the questionable designation, day-to-day upper body. Brent Key is optimistic that Haynes King is going to play here in this game. We'll see if that's the case. Keep in mind that he was not available when they played Virginia Tech in their last game, and neither quarterback played well in that game. I also like the spot for Georgia Tech. We talked about it with Virginia earlier. These late season bye weeks, they're good, positive situations for teams at this stage of the year, and Georgia Tech coming off a late season bye week. If Haynes King's a go and he gets the green light, I'll certainly be on Georgia Tech here in this game. C-Mac, what do you think? Miami GT.
There's good old Mikey, Sports Money. What up? There's your freaking shout out.
Yeah, Sports Money, Mike M. Hit that like button. Appreciate it, Mike. Good to see you. Check out Sports Money, his YouTube channel as well.
That cracks me up.
He is. He's a ball energy. Going concern.
Haynes King has to be in. Let's just I'm not going to take Georgia Tech at all. I've seen enough of both of the QBs that have been in. And still they don't know if he's going to go. I mean, they had the bye week, which is really, really good. If you like Miami, it's like keep taking them, their team total, keep taking the over. We're starting to get up there. Last week, even with Duke, I was like, they're going to score. But then with that 55, I'm like, that's just too low. Now we're seeing something where it should be, I think, here at 63.5. But it all goes to that. It's just Miami, too, seems they had their own turnovers early on. They've come back from it. This team is flawed, but they can score. They can flat out score.
Score quickly.
One thing, they've been lucky. It's some of these games to cover. Because when I see a defense that bad, I mean, you got to have an offense that good. Because when your defense that bad, I want to fade you, laying double digits. But they've gotten by, a lot of them. Not all, Cal and Virginia Tech, but lately, even that Louisville game, I think they were pretty lucky. They got some breaks in the last couple. So, yeah, wait and see on the QB here.
All right, we got Duke and NC State, another ACC matchup. NC State, 3-point home favorites, 50 the total here in this game. I mean, this NC State Wolfpack team offensively, we're starting to see, like I said, a lot of improvement from C.J. Bailey, the quarterback in particular. Had a really strong game. And now Stanford's had some issues, obviously, defensively. But still, you've got to admit C.J. Bailey has played better with each week at quarterback for this NC State team. I worry about this for Duke here in this spot. You had a heartbreaker against SMU, losing by a point in overtime, 28-27, took them down to the wire. You went for the 2-point conversion to win the game in overtime. You didn't get it. You lost 28-27 to SMU, battled your guts out. You battled your guts out for Manny Diaz going back to Miami last week. You played great for 2.5 quarters. How you were leading in the third quarter, and then you get absolutely stomped in the fourth quarter, and a lead turns into not a 22-point loss, and a 22-point loss failed cover as well. Just hit them like a ton of bricks in the second half. The turnovers, and Miami paid them off with touchdowns each time. And at one time, they were up by 11 early in the third quarter, Duke, up by 11. and they're a 21.5-point dog. They don't cover. That is unreal in that game for Duke. And now that's 2 crushing losses in a row. They emptied the gas tank in both games. What's left in their tank here for NC State? On the road again for a second straight week, by the way. I don't like this spot, not even a little bit for Duke. I could only look at NC State here, 3-point home favorites. That being said, their defense is still not that great, NC State, but I really worry about this spot for Duke. When you've battled your ass off 2 weeks in a row with nothing to show for it, you got to ramp the kids up one more time. That's not going to be an easy task for Manny Diaz this week. What do you think here, C-Mac? Duke taking on NC State.
We've already hit on it a little bit of the other games. Well, but Malik, I mean, the turnovers in that second half, and then just like downs, interception, fumble, interception. It's like as soon as after they had that lead, those were the possessions. And I was just like, holy shit. When I looked at this game, NC State's at home playing better football. I think Duke gets back to playing not a team like Miami, doesn't turn the ball over. I kind of leaned under when I looked at this last night. Is it too low? Maybe. But at 50, I leaned under here. And I think it's a game NC State can win. Duke's been so good. Should have covered again. They should have covered Georgia Tech game, too, like I talked about. Missed field goal. That was a horrible loss as well. But as a dog, they've been pretty good. I think this game's tight. So I'd rather have the 3 than lay it.
There's a couple questions about the Duke and the under here. Duke, how much do they have left in the tank? And the second thing, too, is you look at that defense. How are they exhausted going into this game? Because Miami had 41 pass attempts in that game. They had 23, 24, 27, 20, 29 rush attempts. There were 70 snaps for that Duke defense against Miami. The SMU game, that went to overtime. They were on the field for almost 80 snaps. That's 150 plays. 150 snaps almost that the Duke defense has been on the field the last 2 weeks against SMU and Miami. Does that have a reverberating effect here in this game? Just worn down. We'll have to wait and see on that. That's what would concern me a little about the under.
Well, we'll see though too.
Yeah,
I get it. Is NC State, this team that now all of a sudden can put up points? It's changed a little bit. I mean, putting a 59 on Stanford, it's Stanford, but for the most part, this team's kind of been in the 24 range,
right?
24 points all year. So that's why I was leading. But I get, those have been some tough games with a lot of plays the last few weeks for Duke.
Well, this is where he's paid to make, this is where he's paid the big bucks. Manny Diaz, get your defense ramped up again, even though it may not be easy for a third straight week. All right, next up, we've got Syracuse and Boston College staying in the ACC here. Boston College, 2-point home favorites. 53 being the total here in this game. Syracuse, credit to them. Great win for them against Virginia Tech, although a game where they took advantage of an injury to Kyron Drones, the great quarterback for Virginia Tech. And you saw what happened with the Virginia Tech offense after that. Not quite the same. Once Schlee had to play the whole game. It wasn't an in-game injury. It was pre-game. They ruled Drones out, and suddenly here's Colin Schlee coming in as now Colin Schlee's been around the block. He was at Kent State earlier in his college career, but big drop off from Drones to him, and the offense not quite as good. And what happened to the Virginia Tech defense? Because suddenly Kyle McCord, with that team trailing, and not doing much of anything on offense in the first half, and they couldn't be stopped in the second half. So you got to credit Fran Brown and the coaching staff. Syracuse, a totally different offensive team in the second half, and it was just touchdown, 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 touchdown. And all of a sudden, they go from 3 points at halftime of that game to 38 in a 38-31 win over Virginia Tech. But again, you did take advantage of Drones being out for Virginia Tech, backup quarterback in. And now you go on the road where I remember all too well what happened with Syracuse the last time they were on the road, and they got steamrolled by Pitt. 3 pick sixes thrown in the game by Kyle McCord. But is Boston College good enough to take advantage here of a Syracuse team that hasn't always played great consistently on the road? They have the big UNLV win, and then they followed it up with that dud against Pitt. Boston College had a big lead against Louisville in their last game. They lose 31-27. They are off a bye week. And again, late season bye week. That's a plus for Bill O'Brien and his team. Spot-wise, it screams Boston College here. But are they the better of these teams? I'm not sure. I mean, I've got a lukewarm kind of lean here to BC. I don't know if I'm going to end up betting it, though. I do lean to the home favorite, though. Off a bye, Syracuse on the road. Let's see it. And again, Syracuse, big win last week in the Dome, but took advantage of no drones at quarterback for the Hokies. And let's be honest, their defense, believe it or not, at times Syracuse still struggled with Schlee. They did give up 31 points, even though they won that game. What do you think here, C-Mac, Syracuse, Boston College?
Yeah, they did. And Virginia Tech, I mean, had a ton on the ground. Schlee was pretty good, but they gave up, I think, over 200 in that one. But I talked about it, just the horrible game. Syracuse back at home, take them. It was close. It wasn't easy, but outright winners. I think this is a better game because they were off that, the 3 straight road games before that, and then just the horrible one there. And he's going to keep slinging it. I talk about it's Cash for me a ton, his yards and the receivers for Syracuse. But this seems just like such a good spot off the bye for BC here at home to take advantage of it. The trust with them hasn't been the best. That horrible game with the 5 fumbles. Man, I know that was on the road, but they do play their better football here. This game should be good. I kind of lean BC too. It's just the 2.5. It's just kind of like saying, "Hey, take it here." But this is one I need to look a little bit more. I need to dig into a few more things, into maybe the trends and all the other stuff that we sit here all week with these games.
Exactly, because it does feel like I still think Syracuse is the better team. I'm with you, but definitely the better spot. It's a Boston College spot. You're off and they could have beat Louisville. Let's be honest. Louisville team that just beat Clemson, by the way, in Death Valley. Yep.
And that was a great win by Louisville, though. They came back kind of from there and had a good fourth quarter to win it. What a win last week for Louisville.
I'm kind of interested in BC, but again, I'm definitely not betting Syracuse in this spot. It's a question of, do I get involved here with the Boston College side? Castellanos, just protect the football, man, and you can be a pretty solid quarterback. And Castellanos still has some of those issues with that. All right, we've got Purdue and Ohio State. Ohio State 38-point home favorites, 53 the total. I mean, what do you do here? I think passing is the best thing to do with this game. I mean, you got Ohio State, not an optimal spot, obviously. The emotional win against Penn State. Will Howard, the quarterback, was talking up. He went through all the rigors of emotion in that game. He had moments where he was terrible, pick 6, fumble through the back of the end zone, and then he had moments where I thought he was awesome. He made some big third down conversions, especially later in the game in the fourth quarter. They ran out the clock. His running ability late iced the game. That meant something to him, too, because we heard the clips all week leading up to that game that apparently he wanted to be recruited by Penn State, wanted to play there, and they weren't interested in him. So it was like a fuck you type of game and performance for Will Howard to Penn State, getting that victory. Very emotional. Not the spot you want to be really looking to lay 38 here with Ohio State off that kind of win. But problem is you got to trust Purdue on the other side, who are just having a miserable season, 1-7 straight up, 2-6 against the spread. And I'm seeing games where Notre Dame 66-7, Wisconsin 52-6, Oregon 35-0. Those were the 3 games they played against anyone close to as good as Ohio State. Oregon 35-0, Wisconsin 52-6, Notre Dame 66-7. I don't trust Purdue to be any good enough, even getting 38. So it's a pretty easy decision for me. Move on to the next one, at least for me. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, this is not a game that I really want to be involved with too much. Yeah, and just how about they're in that game, they lose it, they're moving the football pretty good against Northwestern, don't get the job done. And Ohio State, the gritty win, covered the number, the game stayed under. Not the best performance that you're talking about from Will Howard. But the win's a win. We'll see down the line in the bigger game where I talk about where I think he's going to be, let's see if he can come up big. And Ohio State, people were questioning, kind of the last few games, they were able to run the ball pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, Judkins had 95, Henderson had 54 on 10 carries. This should just be a blowout. Maybe Ohio State early. They haven't had the best first halves though. You know, at least early on, they've kind of lingered in the first quarter and the second half in some of these schools that they beat up. So yeah, you won't find me betting this.
Yeah, I think it's tricky. I'll say this about Will Howard. I mean, he's had games where he's had great moments, terrible moments. We remember him forgetting how much time was on the clock when he took off and ran and didn't leave his team a chance to kick the field goal against Oregon. Although that's on the coaching staff too, not just Howard. But the kid's got some mental toughness. I mean, he keeps bouncing back from these bad moments and to lead the team
He's
to that
tough.
win. Yep, he is. Yep.
Yeah.
He's got some mental toughness because to bounce back from some of these you would think would be just killer plays in the course of a football game, and he's managed to do that. All right, BYU and Utah. We've got BYU 4.5-point road favorites, 41.5 being the total here in this game. This BYU just magic carpet ride. I guess that's what you can call it at this point. I mean, it's just been remarkable. What a season they're having. Lassiter and Roberts, two phenomenal receivers for Jake Retzlaff. They can run the ball. Their defense is on. Their defense gives up points and gives up plays, but they bend but don't break. They force turnovers. That's been the key all year in this 8-0 run for BYU. But now they're road, and that shows you how Utah's fallen. They're now 0-4 straight up, 0-4 against the spread. Utah in their last 4 games. The quarterback play stinks. This Isaac Wilson is no better than his older brother. Right now, he actually got replaced by Brandon Rose, and Brandon Rose wasn't any good. So Kyle Whittingham has no quarterback that he can have confidence in right now. And obviously, we know the career's ended for Cam Rising, but certainly his season has ended, obviously. So they've got no choice. They got to go to these two stiffs, Rose and Wilson, and neither one is playing well. That's why Utah's a home underdog. They failed to cover 4 in a row. They've lost 4 in a row. And to only score 7 points to a Civ TCU defense that just gave up what to Baylor in a loss this past Saturday, that tells you all you need to know. This Utah offense is broken. You cannot trust them to do anything right now. 7 points against TCU at home. TCU just gave up, 30-some to Baylor, and they've given up 30-some in the majority of their games this year. Last week against Houston, although Houston's got a pretty solid defense, but 14 points, you lose outright as favorites in that game. And the Utah defense is not nearly as good, and they're on the field the whole fucking game because the offense doesn't move the football. Look, I get it. People are going to say all week long, I'm sure, and they're not wrong. This is a rare chance that there's value on Kyle Whittingham in Utah. When are we going to get to back him as a home underdog? But I don't think I can. I don't think I can with the state of their offense right now. Doesn't mean I'm going to be on BYU, but if you ask me right now, early in the week, I'd rather lay it with BYU than take Utah in that offense and those two stiff quarterbacks right now who are brutal. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see BYU having the year, but Utah being down because this always was a great game, and they haven't played in years. They stopped it, like 3 years ago.
Holy War. That's the name of it. Yep.
Yeah. And Utah used to kind of beat up on them the last 10 or 15 years, at least. That's why I can't take Utah at home. The offense is just, it's Wilson or the other kid. Wilson probably will go. Watching him.
You know what's funny? Brandon Rose might have been even worse. That's how bad he
was not good either. I think he went not about around 50% or less. He was awful.
You're going to drag Cam Rising in a fucking wheelchair out there to play quarterback. He still might be better.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. And what's at Parks, the receiver's out, where that best receiver's out for Utah. I don't know how they're going to generate any offense here. And BYU, man, that's been the team. I mean, how could this team, ATS, they just been a cash machine. So, yeah, I think it's BYU or not. I'd love if you saw anything. It was those games like you talked about, TCU, these last few where it's holy shit. Yeah. There's nothing going on, especially out of a horrible defense. If there was anything shown there, then maybe there's value, but there's just not for me. So, yeah, BYU or nothing.
Value is not going to move the football.
I'm sure BYU wants to, this game too, kick their ass to say, hey.
That's another great part of this handicap. I think BYU's been tormented by Utah. in recent years. They know this Utah team looks down and out, at least for this season. Payback time. I don't think they would hesitate to not only win, but maybe, win by a margin if they are so able to. BYU or pass for me, even though they're in the rare role of road favorites in this rivalry game. All right, next up, we've got UCF and Arizona State. It is Arizona State 3-point home favorites here in Tempe. The total here sitting at looks like 56, 55. Actually, 55 is more of the widely available number right now as far as the total here in this game. The money's come in on UCF. What, people buying UCF because they drilled a horrible an Arizona team that's completely flatlined in recent weeks. It was better, no doubt. But we talked about that Arizona UCF game last week. It was two teams that were just in a major rut. Which team was going to break out of it? And clearly it was UCF. 56 points. That being said, we did see some changes in the coaching staff last week from Gus Malzahn. With the changes as far as play calling and the offensive side of it with the, like I said, the play calling duties. And clearly it mattered. And by the way, they fired the defensive coordinator as well prior to that Arizona game, and that defense played a lot better. But again, was it just a spark because of the coaching changes? Or was that, Arizona's just really, really, really fallen down hard here the last few weeks? This is going to tell you all you need to know, because now they're going on the road. They're facing obviously a very good Arizona State team. I thought Arizona State was a great bet last week off a bye week, getting Sam Leavitt back against struggling Oklahoma State, and they took care of business 42-21 in that game. Leavitt was awesome. 304 passing yards. Cam Scatterbu, again, another massive day. 153 rushing yards and 121 receiving. This guy, I don't want to say dark horse Heisman, but he's putting up Heisman-type numbers the last few games. Scatterbu for Arizona State. He's been great, phenomenal. Man. He's been incredible, this guy. He's this big, powerful, strong kid, and he can catch the ball. He can run it. He's tough to bring down in the open field. He's got underrated quicks and hops and speed. And Sam Leavitt, obviously, look at the difference, him and Jeff Sims. Jeff Sims, obviously, there's a reason why he's played at so many different schools. You get Sam Leavitt back, and the passing game just exploded. I'm not buying it just because UCF thumped Arizona that things are back on track. There's a much better team they're playing here, and now they got to go on the road, and they're not at the bounce house anymore either. Arizona State's been good at home this year. They enter this game with a very strong 4-0 straight up home record. I think they've covered every home game, too. Yes, they have. Wyoming, Mississippi State, Kansas, and Utah. They've won every single home game. Is UCF a lot better right now than Kansas or Utah? I'm not so sure about that. Give me ASU here. I think this line's cheap. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, and I think the big thing is just load the box. I know the quarterback, last week was good against Arizona.
He was terrible before that. Ja'Cory Brown. That's who you're talking about. Yep. Or no, sorry, Rizek. Sorry, Dylan Rizek.
Rizek played last week. Yeah, but my biggest thing, let's see if that works. The Arizona State defense has been pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they want to run the ball. That's what, they have what they run for, 270. Yeah. They've been averaging. Arizona State's been pretty good against the run, 111th. And I don't know what UCF team we get. It's just been tough for me to see. Even on the defensive side, it's been pretty hard for me what we get. And now they go on the road. I think it's kind of cheap too with Arizona State. If Leavitt's throwing for 300 yards, Scatterbo for 150, they're not turning the ball over, they're winning and covering this number, man. Do that, they're winning this.
Yeah,
flat out. Even if UCF has a little bit of success, I kind of like the over here.
I'm with you there.
I wish this was. Yep. I think this could get over the number. I think Arizona State could put up some, and I think UCF probably could get in the 20s. So I lean over.
Yeah, I like over, and I get it. Rizek gave him a shot in the arm at quarterback for UCF. He played really well.
He's pretty good.
Up the run game for Harvey, and they had balance against Arizona. But again, this is a lot better team now you're playing, and you're doing it on the road. And Arizona State's done nothing nothing wrong, nothing that doesn't say to me, that they don't deserve to be favored here in this game. They do, and I think -3 at home is cheap in that in Tempe, where they played really well this year. All right, next up, we've got Colorado, Texas Tech. Colorado, 3.5-point road favorites, 62.5 the total in this game. Tech, what a huge win for them. Can they keep it rolling here? This is a really tough game. I always like Tech getting points, but they're only getting 3.5 here. And at home, they haven't always been, nearly as effective. They've had some duds, believe it or not, here in Lubbock this season, Texas Tech. Baylor, they get blown out at home, 59-35. Let's not forget that game a few weeks ago. We'll see how they fare here in this one. They did beat Arizona State at home, which is pretty solid. Again, they've covered 3 of their last 4. 35-34 loss at TCU. They should have won that. And then the huge upset against previously unbeaten Iowa State, 23-22 last week. Again, Baron Morton returned at quarterback, was solid, but they got the run game going. Taj Brooks was outstanding running the football against Iowa State last week. See if he can keep that going here. Meanwhile, again, Colorado enters in off their last game was against Cincinnati before the bye, 34-23. It's a bye week for Colorado. I don't love betting against teams coming off a late season bye week at this time of year, like Colorado is. And look, Colorado's a freight train point spread wise. 6 straight point spread covers. 6-0 ATS for Colorado. And they've even started to get going on the road. Good road performances. Now, you can argue that Colorado State, UCF, and Arizona aren't 3 great road opponents that Colorado's beaten during this stretch, but no, they're improving, C-Mac. I'm seeing the offensive line and the defensive line, which has been the problem for these last couple of years. They're getting better. And even when the offensive line does struggle, incredible to see how Shedeur Sanders is still able to make plays. They're starting to run the football at least a little bit better. And, of course, they've got weapons galore with Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn, LeJonte Wester and company at receiver. Very tough game. I like Tech as a dog, but, man, a huge win like that. Can they step it up again against a red-hot Colorado team off bye week so they'll be fresh? I think you can make a case for both sides, really. So for me, it's a tough one. Maybe I lean over here a little bit. But like I said, as far as a side in this game, I think it's very tough. Very tough to step in front of Texas Tech as a dog at home, and just as tough to step in front of Colorado State, 6-0 ATS their last 6 games, finally playing some better football and off a bye week as well. What do you think here, C-Mac, Colorado, Texas Tech?
Yeah, I liked them the week before at home for Cincinnati. They covered the number. You talk about since the Nebraska game, they've been good on the road. I know the teams might not be the best, but how can you not? I mean, I get why people are going to take Colorado, but I think this is the time to, even off the bye, to look to fade them. And Texas Tech had that dud against Baylor at home, and I still don't love the defense. So are they improving? Maybe at times a little bit, but I think both teams should have success. I thought the number was right where it should be, because I do lean over. I don't know if it can get there. I got to look at it a little bit more. And, and the other thing, Texas Tech, off just a huge win, being down 17, whatever, and, get a few, then get the touchdown to win it on the road, now come back home. I lean their way. I don't know if I get involved here. Just 2 teams that I want to bet on, It's tough.
I agree. That's kind of the way I feel about this one here. And
I kind of like Texas Tech, of course. But yeah, I
like the price and the number and being at home, but I don't love them coming off that huge win against Iowa State. Giving them their first loss, it was such a epic win down to the wire. Do they have another big game like that in the tank? And we got the rest advantage for Colorado off a bye. That's what makes that game tricky. We'll see how it plays out. We got Oklahoma and Missouri, SEC matchup. Missouri 2-point home favorites, 42.5 the total. No Brady Cook in this game if he doesn't play again. No Missouri for me. Even though coming into this game, Missouri, there are some things to like. They're off a blowout loss to Alabama in their last game before the bye, and they are off a bye week here. Extra time to prepare, which is a good thing. So it's a pro Missouri spot. But I am not putting I worked too damn hard for this money. I'm not putting a penny of it on Drew Pine at quarterback if he plays. No fucking way. Not a chance that happens. I've seen enough in that Alabama game when Brady Cook got injured, and then when he was with Notre Dame and Arizona State. I've seen enough. This guy is horrible. An absolute stiff. Terrible. Absolutely brutal. So no touchdowns, 3 interceptions in minimal playing time this year. 55 pass attempts. The completion rate's okay, but just bad decisions, inaccurate with the football. If it's Drew Pine, there's not a chance in hell, even out of a bye week at home, I'm taking Missouri. Not a chance. Against this, and the Oklahoma strength is still their defense, which is still a lot better than their offense. Brady Cook's questionable. We haven't gotten an update from Eli Drinkwitz if he's going to return, but I need Brady Cook in there if I'm going to back Missouri. Simple as that. If it's Drew Pine, no way I take Missouri. I'd probably take the under, actually, if it's Drew Pine at quarterback, because the Oklahoma offense is still very much a work in progress. Against SEC competition, you know what Oklahoma scored the last 3 games? 3, 9, and 14. That's it in their last 3 SEC games. So if this is Drew Pine, this is an under for me. If it's Cook, then maybe I pivot and I go to Missouri here off the bye week. What do you think here, C-Mac? Oklahoma, Missouri.
If Cook's in, it might go up a little bit, but I still think this is an under. Like Missouri defense is pretty good. We've seen when they've played some other talented teams.
They've struggled against good offenses, but Oklahoma's not a good offense, and certainly not.
So they're not a good offense, exactly. And Pye, he was so bad against Alabama. I mean, holy shit! The 3 picks. Watching that was just like, wow.
Like, how about you just take care of the football, man?
Fan.
Like, and he was trying to force shit. Like, you're on the road against Alabama. What are you doing that for? You just basically steward any chance to hang in that game because of that stuff. Protect the
Oklahoma.
Football.
Yeah, dude. I watched the whole thing. It was horrible. Oklahoma, of course, a huge win against named 59-14. Those weird games in conference just to blow a team out, I guess, to pad the numbers for them. But yeah, their strengths, their defense. I've been on 3 or 4 of their unders. I think this game, even with Cook in, could go under here. So I can't. Missouri's at home. I don't want either side. I like Oklahoma. I don't trust them enough either, so I'll just stick to this total.
Yeah, I think I agree that even with Cook at quarterback, we could see this game stay under. It is a decent and formidable Oklahoma defense. And like I said, the Oklahoma offense, though, still having quite a bit of issues. All right, next up, we stay in the SEC. We've got Georgia and Ole Miss. I think this is going to be one of the bigger games on Saturday. We've got Georgia, 2.5-point road favorites, 55 being the total in this game. I mean, we've got, and we'll talk about this, and we hinted at it earlier, we've got some Carson Beck problems right now. I don't know what's going on, whether there's ghosts in it. Is he seeing ghosts like Mark Sanchez back in the day, or Sam Darnold back in the day? I don't know. But boy, oh boy, he's got to be better. He's got to protect the football better. He's been inaccurate. He's had bad turnovers, brutal turnovers, especially at inopportune times. And he's got to work on that stuff. It's that simple. And it almost cost him. They're very lucky that Florida's offense was compromised once they got down to Aiden Warner at quarterback. But for Beck, 3 interceptions. He did some good things, but again, 2 touchdowns negated by 3 interceptions, and bad decisions in that game. So he's just got to do a better job, protecting the football. We'll see if he can improve on that here against Ole Miss. We've got the Rebels coming off a 63-31 beatdown over Arkansas over the weekend. Very impressive. That's the Jackson Dart Ole Miss offense we saw early in the season. Lighting it up, 515 passing yards, 6 passing touchdowns. What an incredible day it was for Jackson Dart. Jordan Watkins, 254 through the air. Caden Lee, 127 through the air. 2 different receivers for Ole Miss with at least 127 receiving yards. But now you're playing a much better defense. We'll see if they can continue to have that kind of production. Probably not here in this game. Total sitting at 55. The Georgia defense is a mystery to me. Like, they completely dominate Texas, but they give up 31 to Mississippi State. They believe it or not, give up, yards and points at times to Florida in that game last Saturday. So even their defense has had moments where they've looked human. Carson Beck has to clean up the turnovers. This is, you got to go to Oxford. I know Ole Miss, they are going to need a lot of help to get in the college football playoff now that they have 2 losses on the season. But boy, oh boy, Georgia, they've been flirting with a second loss in a couple of these games now, including, of course, the Kentucky game and, of course, that game last week against an undermanned Florida team. So the gut feeling tells me Ole Miss could rise up here and get him. Can I bet Lane over Kirby Smart? I'm not so sure about that. You look at previous meetings, Georgia, just Ole Miss beat him years ago, but in the one Kirby Smart versus Lane Kiffin battle last year in Georgia, and it looked like men against boys, and Georgia destroyed them 52-17. So, and he's not big game Lane. He just hasn't proven to be that so far at Ole Miss. Opportunities to win big games, can't do it. Lose to LSU, lose to Kentucky, like he already has this year. Their wins are against South Carolina, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. At the end of the day, I just can't get there with Ole Miss, even though I've got real concerns about the regression I'm seeing in Carson Beck for Georgia at quarterback. What do you think here, C-Mac? Very interesting SEC matchup, Georgia, Ole Miss.
Yeah, let me know. I don't think we'll be able to hear him here, the guys on the golf course, but if we do, let me know. I'll shut the window.
No, I don't hear it.
Okay. Yeah, let's get to this here. Both these teams are dealing with some injuries, and didn't even need. Harris was going to play. He didn't play, right? Last week they didn't need it. I talked about that game, and I'm glad that I didn't really go to it with Arkansas and that under. But I said there's going to be a shootout coming along, and 94 points.
That was the one.
So I was very glad to stay off because I've been all over these Ole Miss unders. And this total, let's do the total here. I kind of talk about it. It's like last year, these two just kind of the top few teams. I talk with, Bama and Georgia that they go over, and the Georgia defense, the numbers are still good. They are good. Ole Miss has been good, but this is a 55.5. Why isn't this 51? So I think they know here. That's why this line's right where it is. So as much as I've took advantage of it, it's a little bit higher than I kind of want in this one, where I've jumped all over the over. I think Harris should be back this week if he almost was back last week.
I think they were
Georgia,
saving him for this game, honestly.
I do too.
They were facing Georgia. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're happy without him. They scored, 63 points, at Arkansas, whose defense, where have they gone? They've had some injuries, but where did that defense go? I can't trust Beck. Like, these are the games that he's going to rile the troops. You know what I mean? Like, after last week and these games were and played big.
He talked to the media like they lost that game against Florida after it ended. Yep.
Yeah. Beck, though, I keep going back to him. Like, I don't know about him. Do you know what? They just kind of dominated that first half so good that his picks, he had one, I think, then two in the second half. He had three against Texas, but it didn't kind of matter, and it was a little bit too late. You know what I mean? Like, if he continues to have games like this, that they're going to lose or they're going to be tight. But I think Georgia's the better team. I just I don't know if I can get to it. I think this is a good game to watch, and definitely even to bet live if you don't have a game, something on it beforehand.
I agree. See how it starts and then go from there. But now we're asking
with everyone
Lane Kiffin to win a big game against a team like Georgia. That's tough. That's tough to ask him to do.
It hasn't worked out. It hasn't worked out. You got to see him. We just talked about James Frank, did we not? Last week, Ohio State, Penn State.
Yep.
What's he do? Doesn't win it. I mean, the game was pretty close, but he doesn't cover. It's just, no way till further notice.
No. So that's going to keep. I got that feeling Georgia could be right for the picking here, but I got to see it. Just like with James Franklin last week, 100%. I got to see it before I believe it or bet it. That's where I'm at with Ole Miss there. All right, South Carolina, Vanderbilt. South Kakalaki, 3.5-point road favorites, 46 the total. What a win for Shane Beamer and his team against Texas A&M. I kind of thought they could maybe spring an upset there against the Aggies, and they did. Very impressive show, especially on defense. Really made life difficult in that game for Marcel Reed at quarterback. Thought they played very well, and then they just opened up a can of whoop-ass in the third and the fourth quarter. I mean, they shut out Texas A&M after halftime. That was a close game. It was 20-20. It was tied 20-20 at halftime, and then it was all South Carolina in the second half. They kind of made Reed a pocket passer, and that's what makes that LSU game so worse for Brian Kelly. Like, how do you not adjust your defense to prepare for quarterback run from Marcel Reed? And Marcel Reed was killing LSU when he replaced Connor Wegman in that game with the quarterback run. Well, Shane Beamer did adjust his defense for the quarterback run. They contained it, kind of forced Reed into being more of a passer. And I'll give Sellers credit. Still not efficient, less than 50% completions, but the 13 completions he had, Lenora Sellers made them count. 244 through the air. He ran for 140 for 106. Raheem Sanders, what a day for him. 144 yards rushing against Texas A&M run defense that have been pretty good. That's a damn impressive win to put up over 500 yards of offense against a pretty good Mike Elko Texas A&M defense. Huge win, great stuff. But obviously you're concerned about the hangover and the emotional letdown potentially here for South Carolina after a win like that. But this team's playing really good football. They should have beat LSU. They crushed Kentucky. They had one stinker against Ole Miss where they didn't play well. They should have beat Alabama, I still think, a few weeks ago when they lost 27-25. They crushed Oklahoma. They crushed Texas A&M. They're playing well. Not an easy team to bet against, but I am a little bit worried about, the potential hangover after that big win. And then the flip side of this is it's just the underdog covering machine that is the Vanderbilt Commodores. I mean, now 6-0 against the spread this season as underdogs. They went outright against Auburn as underdogs. It wasn't one of the better games from Pavia, but he did enough in throwing the football, and they did enough on offense, and then the defense took care of the rest. They were very, very strong in that game on that side of the football. They forced Auburn into a couple of fumbles, stopped them on fourth down a couple of times. And yes, as we've talked about, Connor and I, this Vanderbilt defense has gotten better and better and better as the season's gone on. So, look, I love the way South Carolina's playing. They're capable of winning this game. It's not quite the big number we're used to getting with Vanderbilt in this role, but I'm still on him. Give me the doors. Give me Vandy as an underdog, a perfect 6-0 ATS as dogs coming into this game. What do you think here, C-Mac? South Kakalaki, Vandy.
Yeah, undefeated betting them. And South Carolina, I was the one stinker, Ole Miss. I've been on 3 times as dogs, and they got it done. And huge second half for South Carolina. It was a little bit flipped. A&M did that to LSU the week before, and they got their ass handed to, and they scored nothing in that second half. And Sellers was good, like you mentioned. I love the guy. But if he's going to run like that, and if they can run with Sanders, I mean, he's a great back. They'll have success. Vandy, again, the defense is better. Pavia's not lighting it up here, and I've talked about it. That's why I love that under. I kind of like it here. It's a little. They're just playing a lot slower. The possessions are. They've talked about it.
Yep.
That they want to keep the other team on the sidelines, have these long drives.
Well, they bring in Pavia and Jerry Kill from that New Mexico State staff, and they played slow pace offense there last year. So bringing it to Vandy now. Yep.
These unders have been really, really good, depending on what it pushed with Texas, depending on what number you got. But other than that, it's just been cashing. I think this game's close. So I have to be on the 3.5. As much as I love how South Carolina played, I think this game is tight again. And give me the 3.5 hook here with Vandy. I think they keep it close. And another tight game.
Yep. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that has been Vandy as a dog, almost automatic this season. All right, next up, back to the Big 12 we go. We've got
Artie Bowling. But man, I talked about they beat Auburn just to get to the 6. I thought they could get one more out of these because their schedule, I think it's at Tennessee. Yep. It's not easy. They win this at LSU, then home to Tennessee could be tough. But they could get one more here, I think.
Very possible. There's no doubt. All right, Oklahoma State, TCU. We've got TCU 11.5-point home favorites, 66.5, 67 being the total here in this game. Wow, has it been not used to this from a Mike Gundy coached Oklahoma State team. 0-6 straight up, 1-5 against the spread. Horrible on defense. They've given up now 38 points in 5 straight games, 38 or more. That defense isn't stopping anything. and the offense isn't good enough to make up for it. Alan Bowman is a sketchy up and down quarterback. Ollie Gordon, 1 week he can run it, 1 week he's shut down completely, and his whole season has been disappointing. I mean, there's nothing really to like at all about Oklahoma State. That being said, I think I might have to bet him here. I don't want to.
It's 11.
I don't want to. I really don't want to. Don't make
TCU laying this big number.
They've been a disaster as big favorites, TCU. They've been a disaster as favorites, period. You want me to rhyme off the track record for TCU laying points? I will. They lose outright. Against Stanford, they fail to cover. They win by 7. They fail to cover against LIU. They lose outright against UCF. They lose outright at SMU. They lose outright as 16-point favorites at home against Houston. They win by 1 in miracle comeback fashion as 4.5-point favorites against Texas Tech. That is a team that is now, as favorites this season, 0-6 against the spread. 0-6 as favorites this year, ATS, TCU. Can't back them. Now, and I don't want to back. Who the hell wants to back Oklahoma State right now? But I think I might. I think I might. But it's a leap of faith. It is. Oklahoma State is just in a world of hurt right now. It's just, I can't ask a TCU defense that, other than Utah facing that horrible Utah offense, has given up, 27 or more in every game? I can't ask a team like that to lay points. Now, I love Josh Hoover and what I'm seeing from their offense, but boy, oh boy, this defense, I can't lay points for them. And look at the track record of this series. Oklahoma State 2-2 against TCU the last 4 meetings. The TCU victories were by 7, and in overtime last year by 3. And you go back even further, in 2018, TCU's victory was by 7. They have no track record of beating Oklahoma State by double digits in recent meetings. So God, this is hold your nose, because Oklahoma State is flatlined, but I would still prefer to take Oklahoma State here rather than TCU. What do you think here, Connor Mack? Maybe, and can only look over with these two defenses right now.
Yeah, this is real quick. This is over. That's the over game of the week right here.
There it is.
Oak State, this is it. We're pretty good when I give that. These teams can't stop a nosebleed, especially Oklahoma State. But I think they'll have some success scoring on TCU. We just saw it versus Baylor. Just tough game. But I grabbed the 3.5. I know it went to 2.5. We talked about it. You grabbed more than the field goal last week. It worked out. Maybe a game they could have won. Very, very close. But they're just a team. When you start laying double digits with this bad a defense, it doesn't work out. They don't cover numbers. And even as bad as Oklahoma State's been, I think they could maybe hang around like you're talking about here. Last week was horrible. That line moved too, really late. Steam to Arizona State, Nevada, on Saturday. It moved to 4, 4.5, 5. It was moving. So, yeah, over in this game. And it's crazy to say, but yeah, cannot lay points. Hoover's going to throw it around. He was going to throw for 350. Easy in this game. And their receivers have been good too. If you're looking at props.
No doubt. Minnesota, Rutgers in the Big Ten. We got Minnesota 6-point road favorites, 46.5 the total. There's lots to think about here. First of all, Rutgers is off a bye week. We know before their bye week, Rutgers was just injury riddled on defense, and it was starting to show. They gave up 42 to Wisconsin, 35 to UCLA, 42 to USC before the bye week. What I need to look for as the week goes on is how much healthier is that Rutgers defense getting? How many guys are they getting back? Because if they are getting some guys back and they are off a bye week and they are at home and they get a lot of their guys injured parts back on defense, there's probably some value taking Rutgers here, +6. And then you factor in that it's Ethan Kaliakmanis revenge game. This is against his former team, the Minnesota Golden Gophers. I'm not a big fan of the Greek Stallion, as you know. I'm not a big fan of Kaliakmanis as quarterback, but he'll be wanting to beat his old team. He used to be there at Minnesota. So there's a lot of things in that regard that point to Rutgers. Value in the number because they've been blown out 3 straight games. But they got to get healthier on defense. And if I see them still injury-riddled on defense, I can't back them. It's that simple. So we've got to look at those injuries. And if they don't get healthier on defense coming out of the bye week for this game, I'd probably pivot and look at Minnesota team total over or something along those lines, because this offense is starting to pick it up for the Gophers. They're moving the ball very well with Darius Taylor on the ground. Great running back. Max Brosmer, after some struggles early in the season, he's really picking up his game as far as the offensive end at the quarterback spot. This Rutgers defense against the run is 95th, 167 rushing yards per game. Struggling against the run. A lot of teams are running the football down their throat against them. And Darius Taylor is a really good running back for Minnesota. So again, if those they don't get healthier on defense coming out of the bye week for this game, I'd be looking at Minnesota team total over. But if they are getting healthier, they might give Minnesota a game, because now we're asking Minnesota to win by a touchdown on the road in this game against a team off a bye week. What do you think here, C-Mac, Minnesota, Rutgers?
Yeah, both these teams have been dealing with some injuries, and yeah, it's really hurt Rutgers. They needed the bye after just kind of getting their ass kicked at SC. I got to give it up to Brosmer and Minnesota. They were great. Time of possession, 10 more minutes, and they were excellent the last 8 or 9 minutes. They were down 17-16, scored a touchdown, late field goal, get the small cover there. But I don't really trust them. This line's moving up. It's just I don't really trust Rutgers. After the ass kicking, they took it home to Wisconsin. Then they lose to UCLA at SC. And I don't trust Kyle Ekmans. I get this is kind of the revenge playing the team, but I think this needs to be more than a touchdown to look their way. And you got to look, at the injuries, all that other stuff. But yeah, I can't do it here. Not that I'm rushing to Minnesota, but this team's just been finding ways to win and finding ways to cover numbers this year, Urbano. 7-1.
No doubt. All right, Maryland and Oregon. We've got Oregon 25-point home favorites, 57.5 the total in this game. Oregon, thoroughly impressive. I'm not all that shocked. I thought their speed was going to be way too much, and Michigan's defense just isn't the same. And Oregon certainly took advantage of it. It was a great game, of course. Running the football, Dylan Gabriel at quarterback, very solid. They got out to that big lead. Michigan couldn't stop them. Now, they did take their foot off the gas, but they still cruise. Control from start to finish, 38-17. They win over Michigan, their 4th straight point spread cover, still undefeated at 9-0. This is the one team I would make an exception. I always say fade the team that goes this long into the season undefeated. I'd be reluctant to do that with Oregon right now. And especially with now Maryland's off a bye week for Loxley and his team, but I don't trust them defensively. We've seen them give up 42 to Indiana, 37 to Northwestern puts 37 against them, and 48 they give up to Minnesota in the game before the bye week. I don't trust that defense to contain the great run-pass balance that Oregon has. Gabriel through the air, Jordan James, of course, on the ground, and, of course, Trayshawn Holden as well. What a great game he had in the passing game with Gabriel for Oregon last week as well. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You could lay the 25 with Oregon, but first half has been the even better bet lately with the Oregon Ducks. They have been first. They've been Alabama. Alabama like 2 years ago? They covered every first half. That's kind of what Oregon's turned into. They're covering every first half number. So I think I might be interested in that Oregon first half in this game against Maryland, because they have been absolute machines getting off to quick starts in the first 30 minutes. What do you think here, C-Mac? Maryland, Oregon.
Yeah, Maryland off the bye. If these two road games, if Indiana had 42, Minnesota at 48. And you got to think Oregon's going to be right there. And first half, they've been great. You hit on it. We've been talking about it. Their team total, first half and full game should be good. And he even shoved it there at the end for the touchdown for the cover. So anyone at Michigan, full game. That was
Don't tell me Dan Lanning didn't know the point spread.
He knew it. Holy shit. He ran the last couple right there when he just could have took a knee. Maryland, too, I think they're going to give up a ton. Can they score a little bit? I always thought that game slipped over with Michigan, the last score there. Can they put up some points? They've been a dead over team kind of all year. But I've been impressed with, Oregon's defense, too. Can Maryland get to 17, 20? It's been tough for other teams all year long to get there.
It could go over.
I've been given their love. Which I've never been impressed with too many Oregon defenses. We'll see if it, can continue.
They are playing really well. There's no doubt. 26 points in the last 3 games combined allowed, since allowing 31 to Ohio State. But Ohio State's a different caliber of team since then.
That and the Boise game were like 2, but I thought they played against all these other teams that the defenses look pretty good. Where in other games, points could be scored. It didn't happen. Oregon State, I know they're down a little bit. Illinois, I mean, Purdue got nothing, so been a little bit better than
Yeah, and Billy Edwards is a solid quarterback, but again, they've had games too where how did they only score 10 against Northwestern, Maryland a few weeks ago.
That's the best I've seen, or than the worst I've seen. Like, I was like, holy shit, especially
that ain't going to cut it if they have an effort like that on offense here against Oregon. All right, Michigan, Indiana. Indiana 14-point home favorites, 48.5 the total. I'm crazy as it is to say, these numbers are getting they're trying to inflate the numbers to Indiana, and yet it hasn't mattered. They just cover every single goddamn time, and they did it again last week. Even laying 7 on the road in East Lansing against Michigan State, and it looked dicey early on. They fell behind quick, 10-0, and then they just completely blew the doors off Michigan State for the rest of the game after that, and they end up winning going away 47-10. Think about that. It was 10-0 Michigan State. They didn't score again after that. 47 unanswered for the Indiana Hoosiers. I mean, Curtis Rourke, like I said on Twitter X, I think he might be better than his older brother, Nathan. He's been terrific. Great game again, 4 touchdowns, 263 through the air. They got tons of great receivers, Keyshawn Williams, Elijah Surratt, Miles Price. They've got Justice Ellison in the running back spot. The defense has been bend but don't break. I mean, they've given up yards, but they've shut it down in the red zone when it matters most. We just saw Michigan get whipped at home by Oregon. And now they got to go on the road, face this red-hot Indiana team in Bloomington. And at home, they've been just phenomenal all year, Indiana. Yeah, I'm laying it. I mean, I've been on Indiana every week. They keep rewarding me. Why stop now? C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, Indiana defense has been excellent. At times some yards, but it's just they've shut down, especially in the red zone when it matters. They've been really, really good. Can this Michigan offense that really just is handed off right now? Doesn't matter.
It's Colston Loveland and a spotty run game. That's about it. That from the Michigan offense right now.
It's I still have a pretty good defense, but how do you not? I mean, Michigan has just owned them. Except that 1 year, this seems like similar. 2020, Michael Penix Jr. They won 38-21. Bavana 4 years ago. This seems just like this Indiana team should take it to it. Right as now, it's Indiana late here, or just don't play it. I think. Like, I know it's starting to get out there, but it's just they've just been that dominant, And even though they've been winning and doing this, and Michigan's going to be up, they want to beat Michigan. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't at home. I think they'll be plenty up for this one.
They will be. It's the name brand. I know this is not Michigan of last year when they won the national championship. Far from it, but it's still Michigan coming to town. You've struggled against them. Kurt Cignetti has managed to motivate these players all year to be at their best. Why would it stop now? Every single week, the effort's been great, and I don't think that's going to change here. What a job by Cignetti. Unfortunately, with a job this good, he might not be at Indiana for too long. He's going to maybe
he might be within a year. He might be out of here.
He might be. That's the concern there. All right, next up, we've got Washington and Penn State, also in the Big Ten. Penn State, 13.5-point home favorites, 46 the total in this one. Now, Penn State off that first loss of the year against Ohio State, emotional game, physical game. And now you got to try to answer back here against Washington. Not easy. Not a spot I'm looking to lay 13.5, that's for sure. Coming off a loss like that, James Franklin still sucks balls in the big game. Nothing changes year after year. And now we'll see how he fares here. We'll see how he fares here against Washington. Now, here's my concern with Washington. It's been ugly on the road in these Big Ten road trips. They've made 3 Big Ten west to east road trips. They lose to Rutgers by 3. They get blown out by 24 at Iowa. They get blown out by 14 at Indiana. And that was Indiana without Curtis Rourke in that game against Washington. That was the game Taven Jackson started. And they still lose by 14 on the road. So they have been ugly. They've had ugly results on the road in Big Ten play for Washington. That's what might keep me off the Huskies. But, I like the way they played against USC 26-21. They beat Michigan. But again, those were at home. On the road, it's been tough. And again, their road struggles might keep me off Washington, but I'm not laying 13.5 with Penn State in this spot off the first loss of the season against Ohio State. And I've seen evidence where they lose that first game late in the year, and Franklin's team is life and death the next week against a lesser opponent as far as covering the number. I could see them winning this, but it'll be a sweat maybe for Penn State here. I could see them winning it by only 6 or 7, something like that. So I lean Washington, but I'm scared to back them with those bad road performances they've had in Big Ten play going west to east. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, I played Washington late. It's kind of sat there all week, and I just had to take a money line because I didn't grab the 3 when we did this last week. I waited too long. And they did. Hey, Moss, they got the turnovers. He had 3 picks. They moved the ball, but they just couldn't do anything in the end. SC scoring points wise, and Rogers, no picks. Like that's what he was clean. That's
one of his better games. Yep.
25 or 39, decent, but 262. I mean, he's kind of a stiff back there, but if he takes care of the ball, they're a lot better. Yeah, them on the road it's just been a nightmare. And I kind of feel good that I got it last week, and maybe they could be in this. And I don't love Penn State, but I think Penn State, kind of takes it to them. I'd lean the other way. I think after the loss, not that I'm high on this Penn State team, but this is one Franklin knows he can't win the big game. Knows this next week he's going to be here at home and beat them by 17 or 20. You know what I mean, Babana? And he knows the point spread. Believe that.
Yeah, and long term, very good as bigger favorites as well. The James Franklin can win as big favorites, the lesser lights, but it's as an underdog or a pick 'em where he's been brutal. And we continue to see that, obviously, after the loss to Ohio State. All right. And by the way, that offense still has problems. Drew, what happened to the downfield passing attack for Penn State? We're not seeing it anymore from Drew.
It's there. Yeah, I agree. Where has it gone?
It's all dink and dunk passing and relying on Katron Allen and John Singleton, the 2 running backs. That's where they're at. It's a predictable offense again. And I praised Kotelnicki, the OC, for pushing the ball downfield, but I only really saw it a lot in that West Virginia game early in the season. I haven't really seen it consistently from them ever since, and that's kind of disappointing. All right, Mississippi State and Tennessee. The Vols 24-point favorites at home, 61 the total in this game. Tennessee's a odd team. I mean, I know they beat Kentucky last week. Kentucky's really fallen on hard times. But, boy, you talk about a malaise and a sleepwalk and just a very lethargic, unimpressive, kind of just get through it type of win. That's what it was for Tennessee. Iamaleava was fine. They ran the football well. Sampson was very good. But, again, they had some turnover issues as well in that game, Tennessee, that kind of let Kentucky hang around. They did give up, some yards on the ground. But the bottom line is Tennessee here, you go back and look, they've just 1-3 ATS their last 4. They lose to Arkansas. They barely beat Florida by 6. They don't cover, and they only win by 10 against a Kentucky team that's been ripped apart before that game last week. And then Alabama, they win 24-17. But winning by margin is still a tough ask here for Tennessee. Meanwhile, you've got Mississippi State. They bombed UMass 45-20, bouncing back from a 33-point loss to Arkansas. But they had covered some numbers, in recent games, A&M, Georgia, Texas. There's a lot of points to be laying with a Tennessee team that's not playing 4 great quarters right now. I lean to the big dog here, Mississippi State, a little bit. But, man, that defense, you never know what you're going to get. And if it comes unglued here against Iamaleava, that would be the concern. I would lean over. Could Tennessee finally get this up-tempo offense humming at a high level? Maybe Mississippi State's defense will be the cure for it. What do you think here, C-Mac?
I mean, that's what I was thinking. If this is the kind of the defense, maybe that it could get going. They were pretty good. And, I mean, 0 for 3 field goals, too, in that game for Tennessee. I mean,
field goal is
you're not going to cover numbers doing that, but they were pretty good. But Kentucky hung around. Defense is just all right, but they covered the number. Mississippi State, if they could have some success, I don't know what to make. Tennessee at home is solid, and their defense. But I don't think anyone really unless this is kind of the get right because of Mississippi State's defense to lay 24 here. Like I don't want to do it at all. I think if you look Tennessee, maybe their team total, just because how bad Mississippi State is, but that'd be it. I did not want to lay points with them, even at home.
All right,
that offense they need to go downfield.
Yes,
I know a little bit more, just like Penn State. I mean, they've gotten to too much.
He's got the arm, Nico Iamaleava. We've seen it. Why are you not pushing the ball downfield more? What is wrong with these coordinators? Penn State, same thing we just talked about. Like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, take some shots.
Make the defense think about the threat of a long, deep ball. You can't just have them playing up at the line of scrimmage all the time. If you're going to be short to intermediate passing exclusively and run the football, you're going to be such an easier offense to defend. I mean, it's just football 101. And yet some of these coordinators, they just refuse to just give these quarterbacks a real chance, to fire the ball downfield and try to create these big plays. All right, next up, we've got Florida State and Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish, 26-point home favorites, 42.5, I should say. Let me fix that. That's a typo. 42.5 the total here in this game. Look, there's no backing Florida State for me right now. Simple, period. I don't care what number you put next to them. That is a team that's mentally checked out. I think they've got their bags packed. They're ready for the next adventure, whether it's next year in college, another school, or whether it's the pros or life after football, you name it, whatever the case may be. I'm not seeing a lot of buy-in right now for Mike Norvell's team. Finishing out the remaining games of a absolutely nightmare season for a Florida State football program that was inches away from getting in the playoff last year and as ACC champions. Now here they are 1-8 on this season, and the only victory was against Cal by 4 points by the skin of their teeth. Since then, 26-point loss to SMU, 16-point loss to Clemson, 7-point loss at Duke, 22-point loss at Miami, 24-point loss against North Carolina. That they could only muster 11 points against a North Carolina defense that has not been the 85 Bears, let's put it that way, for the course of the season, with Brock Glenn at quarterback, who's not been the answer. That's not what you want. Couldn't run the football with Toafili. I mean, my gosh, North Carolina teams have run on them like crazy all year, and here's Florida State, 42 rushing yards against North Carolina. I mean, this is either lay it or don't play it for me. Like I said, Notre Dame might be interested still because it's the name brand Florida State coming to town to kick their ass, and I really love what I'm seeing for Notre Dame right now. They've kicked it into high gear, 49-7, 31-13, 51-14. The last 3 wins. They've covered 4 straight. They're also off a bye week, too. Another thing that's in Notre Dame's favor. Lay it or don't play it. I don't know if I will lay it, but it's either I lay it or I don't play it. I don't want any part of the Seminoles. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, that was just horrible. This offense, I mean, North Carolina, 40 minutes to their 20. Glenn, I mean, come on. Even what's the Crowan and whatever the other guy, he's awful too. Holy shit.
The old line,
and you mentioned
one big time too.
Oh, can't even run the ball. This is just, I can't do it. Like, they covered by half a point. What was that? Clemson, barely, and against Miami, depending on where you got the number. This Notre Dame wins this game. I agree. I want nothing to do with it though. Their team total maybe. They are off the bye. Let's see if they can kind of continue to roll. Especially, and they hadn't needed a few guys out, big guys, but some others needed to get healthy. For off the bye for Notre Dame.
They did have some injuries. They had a few on defense. I think the old line.
Morrison's out for the year.
Yep.
They're all American corner. I know that.
Yeah. And what at some point there's going to be a secondary that picks on that, assuming he continues to miss time. But I don't know if Florida State's the team that's going to take advantage of that. Not at all with their offense right now. No doubt. All right, we got 3 games left. We've got Clemson and Virginia Tech. ACC matchup. Clemson 6.5-point road favorites, 52.5, 53 the total here in this game. Obviously, look, check on the status of Kyron Drones. It's significant. Colin Schlee is a veteran quarterback. He played at Kent State, obviously. Foot injury for Drones. Late scratch against Syracuse. Colin Schlee played, but obviously if they're going to have their best chance here to beat Clemson, It's going to be with drones at quarterback, that mobile element that he provides. That being said, Clemson, what happened to them? Cade Klubnik and the offense rolling since the Georgia game, and they got grounded last week. Just off, not in sync. They got stopped on downs a couple times. Just nothing really easy coming for Klubnik. And you got to credit Louisville's defense. And Louisville, double-digit dog, winning outright in Death Valley against Clemson. I think what's shocking is that with Clemson's offense playing so great the last several weeks and Louisville's defense struggling against every good offense they've played, that's what made it surprising. Clemson's offense got shut down. If drones is a go, I'm tempted with the plus points here on Virginia Tech. Bounce back after the Syracuse loss when he didn't play. And this is Blacksburg, Virginia. Not a night game, which is a little bit of a disadvantage for Virginia Tech. It's an afternoon game, but still, you're going to give me 6.5, maybe 7 if this ticks up. And even if it's 7 with Schlee at quarterback instead of drones, he did move the ball at times against Syracuse last week. I'd put it this way, I'm tempted by the Hokies, but I'll like it even more if we get a green light for Kyron Drones to return from the injury this week. Leaning Virginia Tech, though, regardless. C-Mac, what do you think?
Both these teams have injuries. And yeah, Drones, he's being the running back. He was out last week.
Yep. Tutton
Virginia
didn't play
Tech,
either. Yeah.
He didn't play.
He was out.
One thing, it got it there, the whole second and third quarter, Clemson moved the ball and just shot themselves in the foot. They went for it a ton. Missed field, just a bunch of shit. Like Maffa had 170 yards. Clemson wasn't great.
Was there.
He 56, only 33 to 56, but 228. He didn't connect. So they had time of possession, almost 38 minutes to 22 for Louisville. But the Clemson defense, even when they were kind of beating teams on that run, they're giving up some points. If those guys are in, I lean over here. The way Clemson, at least at this number, I don't know how it doesn't, as long as they're healthy and in. So, and if we could get them, I kind of lean their way too. Clemson's just owned their ass lately. Of course, they've had better football teams the last 10 years, but that's another thing.
All right, next up, we've got a big one Saturday night. Alabama, LSU. I believe this is the Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit game Saturday night, ABC. We've got Alabama 3-point road favorites in the Bayou at LSU. Total 58.5 in this game. Night game at LSU. We've talked about that. And, of course, the last time they had a marquee night game at home against Ole Miss, well, I don't think they deserved to win that game. Let's be honest. Ole Miss outplayed the majority of that game, but they stole it in the fourth quarter. Ole Miss melted down. LSU and Nussmeier came back and tied it, and then they won in overtime. LSU both teams are off a bye, but LSU's lost before the bye against A&M. This tells you how bad sometimes Brian Kelly can be. Marcel Reed replaces Wegman. How do you not adjust your defense and play quarterback run? It's like they had never seen a quarterback run the football before.
That's true.
They couldn't stop it. They could not stop it. And it was over and over again. He kept running the ball, and they still couldn't stop it. How bad does this defensive coaching staff to not, let's maybe get some spy out there on the quarterback. Let's maybe try to contain the line of scrimmage a little bit, contain the edge. Don't let him get outside. And there was zero adjustment. And LSU defensively kept getting burned over and over by the quarterback run of Marcel Reed. And they paid the price for it. They could not stop A&M once he got into the game. And they end up getting blown out in the second half. And they lose 38-23 in that game. See if they can make their defensive adjustments. Alabama got back on track after the loss to Tennessee, although they took advantage of Brady Cook getting injured and Drew Pine being terrible at quarterback. But nevertheless, it was a good, solid win, 34-0. This is a really tough one. I still think Alabama's a better team. This is a huge game. Alabama's got 2 losses on the year and 2 losses in conference play. LSU has 2 losses overall, 1 loss in conference play, and there's a damn good chance whoever loses this game is knocked out for good of the SEC championship and the playoff picture. That is how big this is. It's almost like a loser, and your SEC hopes and your playoff hopes might be down the shitter, if you lose this game on Saturday. It's a massive game. At the end of the day, I'm going to trust Caleb, even on the road. I don't love it, because LSU's tough to win there at night in Baton Rouge. But come on, I have to put my faith and a coach that I simply trust more in a game of this magnitude, and that's Kalen DeBoer for Alabama. So at 3, count me in with Alabama. I wouldn't lay more than 3, but at 3 or better, give me the Tide here on the road. What do you think here, C-Mac? Alabama, LSU.
I mean, I get it. To me, he is the better coach, and sometimes I had to take it before, and I got to do it just at night because the one thing is Kelly. It's like, I can't stand him. In big game, like I can't.
It was a complete steal of that game against Ole Miss, but they did win it. They did somehow.
Yeah, they did. I was like, holy shit. I'm leaning their way. I don't know if I get involved. Alabama is still flawed. Like, look, yes, Missouri with the quarterback, and they've looked just like. Of course, Missouri couldn't do anything. We talked about how bad Pine was, but like the defense looks good for quarters, and then they don't. Like they disappear in some of these games. The same thing with the offense. Millers looks amazing. Then other times he's just like going through the motion, and his passes are way off. So with them, I can't lay it with them on the road, not at night at Tiger Stadium. And they need to win, after that second loss. Both these teams, but for Alabama, big time. So, and it's another one, maybe to bet live, you get a better number too. Like as much as I lean LSU, Urbano, Alabama scores, you get a better number with them. Yes. And, LSU has been a little bit better, their defense, but I don't trust it. I just thought the total was a little bit high, but I think we get some points in this game. Whether it goes over or not, I don't know, but I think we can. It might go back and forth here.
Who deserves some blame too for that A&M loss? A big part of it was again the defense not stopping the quarterback run, but Nussmeier too. What was with those interceptions? A couple of them just dreadful, man. Horrible bonehead,
in the second half
decisions. My gosh, from a guy that's pretty experienced, terrible stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he threw 50. He was 25 of 50. I mean, they just stopped running it because they couldn't get anything going. And in the second half, especially those horrible picks, and then they couldn't, stop reading all. So a classic case where he got out-coached there in the second half.
He was
Kelly
by Alco badly.
And he goes crazy, berserk. I don't know how the guy hasn't had a heart attack.
Yeah,
I mean, he's got the best healthcare. All these guys. That's what I say. My dad used to say, "Well, these guys don't have a heart attack." I'm like, "Come on, Dad. They got, these guys got the best healthcare in the country. They're well taken care of."
Yeah, that's true. Don't worry about their ability to pay their medical bills. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're taken care of. They're fine in that regard. Someone's health is going to be affected. These two coaches, man, they need a win here. I think both of them, you can pretty much say good night to the playoff and to the SEC title hopes if they lose this game. That's what makes this a huge, huge game.
Big game at night.
Yeah, big game at night there for Alabama and LSU. All right, next up, final game. How about a little late night action? This is the only late game taking place on again another Saturday where there's not many late games. There's only this one: UNLV and Hawaii, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We've got UNLV 13.5-point road favorites, 49.5 the total in this game. UNLV obviously the better team. It's accounted for in the number. They've been absolutely terrific. No issues at all. Having to turn to Haj Malik Williams at quarterback. He's been great. They're off that tough 29-24 loss to Boise. We'll see if they can bounce back from that. UNLV is actually just 1-3 against the spread their last 4 games. So maybe a sign that they've been, power rated a little bit too highly of late. Meanwhile, here's Hawaii. Their last 2 games, they beat for Nevada 34-13 at home. And then they follow that up going on the road where they've been pretty bad this year for the most part, Hawaii, until last week, when they outright beat Fresno 21-20 as 12-point dogs. Huge. They got a last-minute touchdown in the final seconds from Braden Shager and the Hawaii offense. And suddenly there's some life for Hawaii, and there's some life in the win total that I bet on Hawaii. I need one more win for it to cash. And they've got this game with UNLV, and then they got San Diego State, San Jose State, and Nevada. They've got this game. They've got Utah State and New Mexico, I should say, after this. And they absolutely should win one of those games, I would think, against one of those teams. So I'm all of a sudden in good shape with the Hawaii win total. Do I take them here? They've covered 2 in a row. Not easy, obviously, to play there in Hawaii. Now, UNLV beat them 44-20 last year, but Hawaii did gain 359, and they only outgained Hawaii by 90 yards in that game. And then you look back 2 years ago, Hawaii won outright as a dog here against UNLV in 2022. And in fact, Hawaii has won 3 straight hosting UNLV, and they've covered 2 of those. Now, again, it's UNLV off a bye. That's a plus. UNLV off the loss to Boise, so the focus should be there for Barry Odom and his team to get back on track. But I also remember they were off the loss to Syracuse, Connor Mack, 19-point favorites, and they had a huge first half, and then they fell asleep in the second half. They got backdoored by Utah State off their last loss to Syracuse. And I worry about that here with a number like this that, yeah, UNLV can come out strong. I think if you like UNLV, take them first half. Because I worry about the back door being open with Hawaii here later in the game, because we kind of saw UNLV take their foot off the gas against Utah State. They fell asleep, and the defense just kind of caved, and Utah State gets the money through the back door the last time they were off a loss. So I don't know if I get involved in this game, but it's a lot of points for me. Too many. I prefer UNLV in the first half. I think if you're going to look full game, I actually lean Hawaii a little bit. C-Mac, what do you think? UNLV, Hawaii?
Yeah, this is one I'd like to have over 2 touchdowns. You mentioned this UNLV team. It's just, this is a different team, different regime. But before that, they were horrible in Hawaii. Like, I mean, they could go in there and maybe eke out a win. Once in a while, they mostly lose. This is just bad spot for them. The one thing I got to hit, Hawaii's run defense has been pretty good all year. Genty had over 200, but I mean, come on. The guy's the best back in the country. And he had 2 long runs. But that game going into the third quarter was 13-7. He broke a 44-yarder late and another touchdown to make it 28-7. Yeah. The Hawaii defense, I thought, has been pretty good. And, yeah, how about to have him come back and win last week? Because I had a piece of it. I was like, no way. And then, boom, 2 touchdowns. I was like, holy shit. Bavano, I loved it. So, can this UNLV team that runs it so well, and this Hawaii run defense that's been pretty good, like, keep them in this game. Yeah, maybe UNLV a little bit early when they're firing, but yeah, I think the back door could be wide open. If I get over the 2 touchdowns, I'm gonna look Hawaii's way. I don't know if I get it, but yeah, I like it.
All right, there you have it. That is the college football slate for Week 11. And another again, we don't have much left. We've basically got, after this week, we've got 3 full weeks of regular season college football left, and then it's conference championship Saturday after that. So we are winding down, believe it or not, the college football season, definitely in the home stretch. Shout out to everyone in the chat: Robert Franklin, Goryan Ninkovsky, Nick Ilvento, Sports Money, Mike M, Myron Kidd, Nasty Nate, G Martinez, Gold Jew, Dom, Nuke Worker, everyone joining us. Hit the like button. Thank you for watching on YouTube, and thanks to those watching on all the other platforms as well. We haven't confirmed a time yet, but we are going to try to be back with you Friday this week for a college basketball, the first college basketball edition of Hitting the Books, to break down a huge Friday college basketball slate. Again, that will be announced later in the week, the time. But we'll try to get a 1-hour college basketball show out there for you on Friday. And, of course, we're back here next Monday, as always, with the college football edition of Hitting the Books. C-Mac, last thoughts before we wrap this show up?
Yeah, shout out to all you guys in the chat. As they say, just hit the like button. So if you watch it, hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't. And hit us up with the games. What you guys like, what you're betting, or ask questions. I always like to check it a couple times in the week about what people are on or anything they got. I always love it. So hit us up during the games or on here. That is it, my friend. Yeah, we will be back on Friday, probably Friday afternoon. But college basketball is back in a hurry today.
Yeah, no shit. It only 190 games or so on the slate today.
This is me, like studying these. You too. I mean, last
6 a.m. And that's when I finally got to sleep last night. So that tells you how that first, and you trying to catch up on everything too, the returning production and returning starters.
Yes, that's always
and system changes, teams that are playing faster, that were playing slow, and vice versa. Got to be aware of that. Pace changes for totals. Yep.
Yeah. the digging, yeah, to all that. Because yes, it's so time consuming, college basketball, to go through all those, all that.
No doubt. But still happy it's back. And it'll be, and again, especially
Oh,
March
yeah.
Madness is still
Shit.
one of the absolute best times a year in any sport. And that'll be here too before you know it. Shout out again to everyone in the chat. Thanks for tuning in. Hit the like button on the way out. For Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. This has been another edition of the College Football Hitting the Books betting show. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy college football week 11. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we will be back with you next Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, for another edition of the Hitting the Books College Football Betting Show. Until then, class dismissed.